Proton, privacy by default.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Octane Collegiate. It is the Proton Collegiate Kickoff, and my name is CB. I'll be your host this evening, and of course, I will be joined by the wonderful Happy.
Yep, we will be here for Octane, the Proton Collegiate Kickoff. It's going to be a very good time. It's our first time casting together, even though we've both done plenty of Octane, plenty of Apex in the past, and it's very exciting to get to go into it as just a nice little kickoff event before the season actually gets going. We don't really get to see how teams are going to place in the regular season just yet, but it's a nice little prelude, a bit of a preview, so we can set our expectations in the right spots when the games actually get going.
Yeah, and maybe you and I haven't done a whole lot of it together, but I think we're going to do quite a fair bit today because it is going to be a match point format, which means we could be going all night, baby. We got a 5-map minimum. Oh, yeah. We're going to play at least 5, but we could play 20. Who knows? You know, whenever we get... What's the record, actually, for, like, match point, by the way? Highest I remember was, like, 11?
I want to say it's 12 or 13 in some APAC North set, like, that a year or two ago.
We could break that today. We could. I don't know if we're going to because it kind of feels a little bit top-sided, you know, with some of the talent here. There's talent all across the board. Top 6 is going to be pretty competitive, and I just don't know how the math is going to work out. But here are the teams that we're going to be looking at today. You can start doing the math right now and start placing your bets on whichever team you think is going to be the one taking it. Who are some teams, though, that you might be putting your money on?
So a lot of people who've been watching Octane Collegiate in the past will notice a couple of the teams on this leaderboard, specifically Tamu Maroon, historically one of the most praised and successful teams in Apex since the start of the Apex Collegiate scene, as well as Southern Miss, the Season 3 champions, the team that has the only Pro League player in Thales, and a team that has been very dominant even before that Season 3 championship, as well as, you know, a team like ISU Farmers and maybe a couple other colleges that are repeats like Kennesaw State Black. But what I'm really looking at is the big 3 of new teams and new additions who've made a lot of changes and brought in some players, some of them through recruiting, maybe others just through coincidence, but either way, it's Ottawa, Bellevue, and Cumberland who have brought in some high-level Tier 2 players to really try and make a push to be the very best team in the scene. And the scoreboard right now is done by seeding, and as you can see, yesterday they all had very good days as they come into today as the 1, 2, and 4 seeds or as the 1, 3, and 4 seeds with Tamu, the only historically very good Apex team to actually be in that top 4.
I'm sure we can spend all day, you know, talking about just how strong all of these teams are, how, you know, vastly some of them have improved. But unfortunately, we ain't got time for that because the first lobby is already ready. So how about we show you just how strong some of these teams are and just how close it can be amongst some of these top tier teams. You mentioned the big 3. You know, you also mentioned, you know, Texas A&M Maroon. I actually kind of wanted to bring up, you know, that Texas A&M and Southern Miss were in the same qualifier lobby. Only 2 points separated those two. Tamu Maroon actually being the ones to come out on top. But Southern Miss with 75 KP, they were, I like that kind of tells me that they weren't really taking it too seriously. They got their 2 wins early on and they're like, we're chill. We can just frag out the rest of the time. We got to play for placement. We can just cut a bloody swath through the rest of these lobbies. You know, good enough is good enough.
So it looks like we are going to have to restart that first lobby. We tried to get it up and going, but we're going to have to be a little bit longer until we get that first game ready for you. We're going to cut it to a break.
Tell about them.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to cut it to a break, but make sure that you stick around because that first game is going to be up and running in no time at all. So stay right where you're at.
Proton, privacy by default.
Welcome back, everybody. It's not an Apex Legends broadcast without a few lobby resets to really start to build up the tension, but now it is time to put the tension to the side and see what these teams have got. And we've got the drops right out the rip. We are in the game. We've got the Legends selected. We've got everybody in their drop spots. And Happy, there's a couple of interesting anomalies with the starting things out on World's Edge.
Yeah, nobody choosing to go big mod. Instead, CSU Fullerton end up at Epicenter, and OU Esports end up in East Skyhook. Neither one of those really considered super high tier drop spots, but it seems like nobody really wanted to fight the ISU Farmers, as they are the kind of team that wants to take the fight straight to you right off of the drop. And as they see the zone, that first zone popping, all the way over in West Skyhook, it is very clear why no one wanted to land next to the ISU Farmers, because they are already in another team's POI looking to fight Penn State.
Yep, this is 100% the MO of Iowa State. They don't necessarily play by your rules, march to the beat of their own drum, and it's a war drum as you can hear them approaching, and even though they might not be as strong as they once were in the Octane Collegiate seed, they are still looking to try and recapture some of that former glory, and a great way to do that would be to be the ones to strike first blood. You can see the hunt going, but so far, no one showing. Is Iowa State not going to be able to find much of anything yet. Penn State on the other side here, and finally the two will meet. Nearly able to get the knock there is Braze. Bangalore able to escape through the smoke, and you already see the versatility of the Bangalore, and the Newcastle on the other side gets just dropped with the PK shots real early on to be letting that weapon sing, but oh yeah, we're kicking things off with a bang.
Kamal is going to die for this contest, though, so you can see a little bit of hesitance from Iowa State at the very least. To teammates banner back with that crypto drone, could even stick a res in the middle of the POI, as that's exactly what they're going to do. In the meantime, Group T is going to look to continue this fight. They know that Penn State can't get that res off. It's a straight up 2 versus 3 inside this building.
Braze just looking for those shots, either to get the finish or try and get another knock, though. But so far, neither coming through. Now just trying to use the cover of the caustic gas to find a safe place to sit, at least for the time being. They found Group T on the outside, but Group T has found the knock on the Braze, and now as the back door is swung wide open, Braze has no choice but to stand and deliver. But it's going to be Iowa State ending up being the beneficiaries of that exchange way over in Lava Dome. So that fight already done, but that's very far away from where that ring is going to be pulling.
Yeah, it seems to be a hard skyhook pull. So Oklahoma, at least for Vindic 4, picking East Skyhook over Big Mod, as it's very clear they would not have enjoyed their game. As Penn State clearly didn't enjoy the start of that. At least able to get 1 point out of it, but either way, the 20th place team, as the rest of this lobby seems very set on trying to make those rotates into Skyhook. A variety of ways you can get there, and once you get there, a variety of different places to play, given that there are so things up in Skyhook, no matter which side it pulls to, and most of them are still going to be income ring too, as we can see that green outline. There are maybe a couple corners of certain buildings in Skyhook that won't be in by that second ring, but as long as you can get a foothold in Skyhook at all, which shouldn't be too hard, you've got just as good a chance as everybody else.
Yeah, for a team like Ottawa University, who managed to score Sky West Trials off the draft there, they're going to be nice and looted up. They're going to be ready to sit pretty, just waiting for the fight to come to them. Depending on their team composition, which, you know, I imagine they will have tailored to their drop spot, they should have the caustic, they should have everything they need, but, you know, maybe they want to play a little bit more aggressive. We know some of these top-tier teams bring in the Pro League and Challenger Circuit tier talent to the dance floor. They're going to be trying to play a little bit more aggressively, kind of like we saw from ISU Farmers, and not necessarily like we see from San Jose State currently, as they have the caustic and the altar. This is a very meta composition right now, playing with Legend Bands, so get it while you can. They need to try and find some place to set this caustic up, though, because without that, you know, you're trying to just rely on the versatility of the caustic barrels. You're trying to rely on the ability to rotate from the Bangalore and the altar. If you're Minnesota State Mavericks, you're going to need a lot more than versatility to be able to survive this one.
And they will be able to. It's Georgia Tech Navy, though, the ones, unfortunately, on the wrong end of that fight inside of Mirage Voyage. That is big for a team like the Minnesota State Mavericks, and obviously not big for Georgia Tech Navy. But Minnesota State's coming from Harvester all the way up to Skyhook. If you're in a low priority spot like that, one of your first priorities should be getting as close to purple shields as possible, because not a lot of teams in Skyhook are going to be able to have that luxury, especially teams that had to rotate there incredibly fast. So, already having one guy at perp and having another two very close, Minnesota State Mavericks seem to be in a very good spot to be one of the scariest teams to fight coming into this POI. But Ottawa State, or rather just Ottawa, a very scary team to fight, knowing what some of those players have done in CCs, and they are already on full perp holding top trials.
Yeah, we got a brief glimpse of their composition that I was talking about earlier. Even though they have the prio on this ring pull, they're still going to be playing that really aggressive composition. Bellevue, again, also, once again, bringing that caustic to the table. They need to try and get nestled in a little bit more deep, and you can see them trying to make their way up through the west side towards the north, try and get in towards Skyhook here, and maybe try and take a couple fights while they're there as they're approaching Mirage à Trois. We do know that the Mavericks should still be there. If not, they are definitely nearby, and they very well might be next on Bellevue's chopping block. We talk about how that's one of the 3 teams looking to make a name for themselves. Well, here's the 3rd right now, Cumberland University out of no name, and that's a hell of a charge rifle shot to kick this fight off.
Yeah, Slasher. The one without the same level of T2 results as Zach W. Keys and Maple, but the shot caller of the squad and a lot of collegiate level results in prior tournaments. Already starting things off shooting quite well as they get a knockdown onto a member of ISU Farmers. That's the downside of immediately looking for that fight in Dome that ended up taking a long time. You're going to Skyhook from Stacks. You're going to be very late on your rotate, and if you run into another team who wants to play edge, like Cumberland in this case, you're going to be stuck in a really bad spot, popping white heels in no name, hoping that they don't see you trying to escape. And as they take the evac tower, they'll have to pray off of this.
Yeah, but like obviously we saw Cumberland just sitting there waiting, gatekeeping. They have the shots going. They might be able to find enough damage to knock down Kemma, but looks like Iowa State might be safe, at least for now. They should be able to get some reses if the knocks even do come through as they approach over towards Epicenter, which, at least for now, appears to be safe. And, oh, yeah, not even gonna trip. All right, everyone's shoelace is nice and tight, and we can keep on going. Iowa State can continue to play their super aggressive style. Interesting that they're bringing the Crypto to the table as well, by the way. Something that we haven't highlighted, but Crypto is another one of these legends that we're seeing. Not a lot, but a little bit more, especially when you're trying to break some of the more defensive holds with, like, the Void Nexus, with the Caustic Barrels, where people are just trying to play their little buildings.
Yeah, Crypto is incredibly powerful in this meta. The problem is you just need someone who can play Crypto, and functionally he's very different from most other legends in the game. Good knock for Viking Cap. Does manage to knock down one up on the roof that was cloaked, but ends up getting back to safety, so no KP for SJSU just yet. SJSU, a team that's been around in Collegiate for quite some time, and though they haven't really ever been a top team, winning any tournaments or competing consistently to be match point threats, they're a very consistent, reliable team, and players like Viking Cap are a big reason why, as Minnesota State Mavericks trying to leverage their purple shields to take a fight on the edge here.
You want to talk about consistent and reliable? Those are 2 words I would use to describe the PK. The third I would use is potentially Mack Truck, and there we go. Abysmal just gets ran over there. And Minnesota State Mavericks, with that knock, should have a good prio for that fight, though. But back over towards Skyhook, over in the ring, as we see people trying to fight over this, over whatever buildings they deem to be the god spot. Bellevue University gonna get some knocks, get some KP on the board, using the Ash ultimate as well to just kind of dip and duck between some of the buildings here. It's why we see a lot of the Altar, why we see a lot of the Ash, why we see a lot of these legends that are really good at between just going, you know, in between some of these buildings. It really pays dividends on a map like E-District, and here on World's Edge, yeah, what is Skyhook if not a little bit of E-District, and what is Roll Tide and Seek if not a little bit of grist for the mill here?
Yeah, that's Vaudry. I mean, when you put a guy who was known for being one of the sparkiest up-and-coming M&K players, made it to Pro League before on Oversleepers, you do not mess with that roster to the extent that I do. I promise you, whoever you are, it's not the same. But that's what happens when you get him in a collegiate lobby, and that's what a lot of these teams have been doing. That's like Ottawa, like Bellevue, we were just talking about, but also like maybe a Cumberland. A lot of these teams that have been doing that and getting some very high-level players. And you can see that Bellevue are taking it personally that anyone thinks they can stand next to them, and the same goes for Ottawa. Someone tries to take the building next to you, why not just get a knockdown onto Nabber? That's Tamu Maroon already being down 1.
Yeah, and that's, again, we highlighted how strong of a team Tamu Maroon is. Might not be, you know, amongst that top 3 that we're looking at right now, but still has the potential to be. They need to be at full strength to do it, and losing Nabber is not a way to be at full strength. I can tell you that much. Aaron Zwifty's still alive, and they have the Caustic Barrels for cover and the smoke for a little bit of an extra if they need it, but things are getting real crowded over here, and being stuck inside of a building in Skyhook with this many teams in the vicinity, I don't see a realistic way that you're going to be able to get that res off without some extra sneaky plays. So, you know, if Texas A&M, you're gonna have to pull something out of a hat if you want to stay in this one. 16 squads left. It's a little bit too early for a team at that caliber to be going out. And speaking of calibers, charge rifle still very high caliber shots ringing out.
Looks like this next ring for ring 4 is going to be pulling over to the east side of Skyhook and continuing to go north. So teams like Bellevue and like Ottawa are going to need to start taking fights. Unfortunately, that's going to mean that the duo of Tamu is going to look like easy pickings out of this position. Well, yeah, I mean, listen, they're not going to be content to sit where they're at because they're going to have to move. So they're going to need to keep taking fights. And Tamu's only 2 players. I would imagine that squadron is going to be on the receiving end of some ints very, very soon, as it looks like Ottawa might already be getting started, pushing up very close to where Tamu is, trying to take a fight on that building, with Bellevue zoning out all of the buildings in their vicinity.
And Texas A&M Maroon is going to be ousted. Now Bellevue up over here on this high ground, like you said, they are going to have to move eventually once we get to the next round. It looks like the ring is going to be pulling a little bit more towards Skyhook East. So some of these teams that were banking their money on the west side are going to be colliding into each other. It's going to get real bloody here real fast. We're going to see a lot of Void Nexuses and a lot of Bangalore smokes coming out. And with some of that caustic gas, just to try and rotate, things are going to get a little bit hard to see, even through the scope of a charge rifle, which many of these teams are going to be having if they don't already. You're going to be seeing a lot of 30-30s, a lot of charge rifle shots, and once things get up close and personal, some PK shots, and Loxanity doesn't even need to get up close and personal. Able to find a knock from way far away with the G7 Scout. Unfortunately, too far away to be able to follow up on that, but it's about sending a message.
Yeah, getting that extra Evo for getting a knockdown as well can never hurt. In the future, you're also going to be getting a lot of ult charge off of that G7 knockdown, as the G7 is going to be receiving the ult accelerator in the next update. So that'll go from a pretty solid gun if you don't have a 30 or a charge rifle, or if you're just more comfortable with the G7, to maybe the best poke gun in the game is Iowa State. 30-30s and charge rifles of their own, but more importantly, looking to take down Gamerhawk's Navy on the building they currently reside in.
They might have access to that EMP, and they're in a good position to try and use it here. One of the things we talked about, here we go. The EMP is coming out, so that does mean that Iowa State want to hit that go button. Looking for the right point of entry here, heading on up the stairs and letting the shots ring out. We're going to have that Newcastle shield up in the way, so we're not going to be able to find the knock, but the PK will ring out in the Volt, putting out all the more damage from Group D. And Iowa State, so far, have made their presence known. They've kicked off a lot of noise, but no one being knocked on either side. And as everyone retreats back to their corners, waiting for the next blow to come through. If nothing else, Iowa State have gotten themselves in the building, but they haven't exactly made themselves welcome here.
Yeah, and if you're in this kind of a spot, especially as the edge gets closed out, you kind of want to be on the roof a little bit more so you can poke. In the spot they're at, there isn't really much potential to do too much damage, establish yourselves, or much else. So it's very clear that out of this position, their goal is to kill the team above them. We know Iowa State. We know that's their goal most of the time, is to kill the teams next to them. It's very clear that that's going to be the plan here, but having already popped that EMP, and now Newcastle Wall charged and Caustic Barrels already reset up, Gamerhawk's Navy are very content to sit in their corner and wait for Iowa State to walk in.
Yeah, and for Iowa State, you know, to already use that EMP, like you said, using that utility just to, like, you want to take ability. You don't want to use that just to, you know, get to a place where you can cohab. So they're going to be looking for the opportunity, and you can see, you know, in the elevator shaft a couple of times poking on up through, but between the Newcastle and the PK and the Caustic Barrels, they just can't seem to get in the door, and unless they're able to build up to another EMP, maybe they brought some ult cells, maybe they can try and find a way to get up here, but Gamerhawk's Navy are just nestled in here like ticks, and there's really no way to get them out.
Yeah, but they're also really not doing much to keep ISU farmers away. They're just sitting at and waiting for ISU to make the play. They're letting them reset consistently and then go at it again. And here they go for the third time, it looks like. Although they're only going to fade down to the first floor. They're not actually going to engage in that second floor fight once again. It seems like they burned a lot of heals in this process.
Yeah,
I'm seeing a
lot of low health bars for Iowa State farmers and only syringes. So I mean, the resource wars are definitely being won by Gamerhawk's Navy right now. And once that ring starts knocking on the back door, both these teams are gonna have to rotate further in. As Kennesaw State Black seem to have the best position for this next one, it's gonna get real bloody for these two teams. Bellevue is gonna be eliminated in the kill feed, by the way. That's another one of our top teams somehow knocked out.
Yeah, it seems like they might have just taken a fight against the wrong squad. I would imagine they came to blows with Ottawa University, maybe another one of the top fighting squadrons, or they just had a really rough rotate, maybe got caught up by Southern Miss up on the height, who now themselves are going to have to make a rotate work. They have a very good composition to play hard zone with the altar to get back in position if you make a bad rotate, and both the Newcastle and the Caustics to set up another position. So wherever they end up, if they're able to find something that's even somewhat playable, they'll be able to set it up really nicely with all that utility. The problem, though, is that 12 teams are still up, although it could be less soon as Mav gets knocked down for Ottawa.
Yeah, RJ going to be the only one left alive, and I think Ottawa might be on their way out here. Well, it's going to take the Void Nexus to get out. Might be able to get some of the reses that way. CSU Fullerton appears to be the team that they were fighting, and also be taking a reset. Something I want to highlight, though, by the way, is Minnesota State Mavericks just at that lower end of that tower over the middle of Skyhook there. I forget the name of that tower, but basically the God spot with all these teams coalesced over here inside of the ring. You've got those two teams up way on high there that are going to run into each other when they have to drop down. Iowa State, not content to stop running into other teams, wants to continue to take more fights, get a little bit more KP under their boat. Only 2 so far. They are so hungry, and they are going to be eaten over here on this edge. Rupti on 1 HP takes a bunch of damage from a frag grenade there. Koryu has been knocked. To be able to get the shield cell off here, but we're scavenging for heals here. It's real bloody in the resource wars all over the ring here. Everybody is running low. Iowa State farmers will get knocked out, and so too will Cumberland, and suddenly we are down to 10.
Yeah, in terms of the top level teams we thought would get super far, now into the top 10, it's really only Southern Miss and Ottawa who we thought would be threats to win the whole thing that are still standing right now, and it looks like Southern Miss in a bit of an engagement. It's Thales ends up with a knockdown. In the meantime, Bill BC, Crimson Monkey, and CSU Fullerton is right next door to the building that everybody else in the lobby seemingly wants to take part of. Those 4-stack buildings have plenty of floors to play on, so obviously in a spot like this, you're going to rotate in and take one of those if possible. 10 teams going into the final ring.
And Gamerhawks Navy have done a great job of rotating themselves into a safe position, once again getting nestled in, just like Tix again. Trying to use some of those caustic barrels to get some pseudo grenade damage in through the walls there, through the windows. It's not going to be quite enough to kick all that off, but at the very least, they've managed to get themselves a decent placement here, but they're going to have to try and break a little bit further into top 10. Is gas grenade going to come out from Mank on Southern Miss? Again, one of our top teams. We want to see how far they're able to take it. They've got a good spot. They've got good prio. They've got access to the roof, and everybody is going to have to be trying to find ways out of this building and turning themselves into fish in barrels for the likes of Southern Miss. They've also identified over there, we see another team. We see Minnesota State Mavericks underneath that ramp trying to get a little bit of pot shots over there. For Mavericks, it's going to be a tough rotate as they're already down gravity, and even through the Ash TP, they're not going to be able to live. They can't get themselves into a safe spot. There is no safe place, and that's going to be Southern Miss, I believe, getting the KP off of that one.
Yeah. Kindly Monkey ends up with one for KSU as well, and that is top 10. 8 kills, though, for MSU, so for now, they stand in first. Still remains to be seen, though, who's going to get the lion's share of the endgame KP in place points. Hey, wants his voice to be heard first off. Mist Le Maverick is going to get involved as well, and all of these teams making their way out of the 4-stack. CSU Fullerton, the duo, the only remaining duo, was the first to die.
Gamerhawks Navy going to get taken out. They tried to use the caustic gas to make something happen, make everybody walk right into it, but we're going to see some Bangalore ultimates coming out, some creeping barrages. And everybody, like I said, is so low. Nobody seems to have the heals on any side. All the health bars are so small, and they're all going to start evaporating one by one as Ottawa is down to just RJ, and that ring is going to be eating RJ alive. We're going to have to use the altar teleports, get through walls, try and get into safekeeping, but there's just more caustic barrels. There's more gas everywhere you look. The life being choked out. And there we go. RJ is going to fall. Ottawa University is going to be dealt with. We're down to 6. OU Esports going to be the next potentially on the chopping blocks. Presso trying to keep everybody alive. Southern Miss is going to fall in the kill feed. And now we're down to just 5. Make it 4 as St. Clair Saints, a team we had not previously looked at, suddenly has the God spot. They have the Panopticon. They are looking at every other team now going to drop. Lucky gonna pop those caustic barrels and bleed everybody else dry. Western Outlaws, done. A nice res coming out from the Newcastle, but Kennesaw State Black, done. Presso, done. St. Clair Saints, your map 1 champions.
Incredibly well played by St. Clair Saints. We, like you said, didn't get to highlight them a ton because so many teams make their way into Skyhook every single game in a Skyhook zone, so I can't tell you when exactly they were able to get not abandoning it too early. There were a few other floors on that building, but they know that if you get that top floor and you're able to keep yourselves 3 players up, you're able to do exactly what they did at the very end and just kind of use your height to look down at everybody else fighting, because no one in that open area is in a safe spot. They're all either nestled behind a Newcastle wall, maybe sitting behind an RV, but there are teams with angles onto them, but for the most part, they're fighting each other. So St. Clair not only were able to get that first place, but they got a good amount of KP in doing so by just picking off players one by one on the low ground, fragmenting everybody below them, forcing desperate plays. and then capitalizing and just picking off one or two in the process. Outstandingly well played to not leave their height early, just wait until everybody has to fight each other and clean it up. That's textbook shot calling out of whoever the IGL is for St. Clair's.
Now, whoever they are, they need a raise, and I hear rent is pretty expensive when you're paying for the penthouse suite, and like you said, all these people up, trying to play for the top floor in a skyhook zone. We highlighted like 3 or 4 different teams trying to do just that, and at a certain point, it does kind of come down to a little bit of luck of the draw as far as the ring pools, but it is always going to be the IGLs that are trying to get you into that position, based on their best judgment. And for St. Clair Saints, they were able to do it. So, like you said, whoever they are, cut them a paycheck. Maybe they can have the bulk of the $500 cash prize. Did we mention that there is a cash prize for this tournament today? Because there is, and some of these teams are already playing like it.
Yeah, and St. Clair Saints, the one to top the scoreboard after that very first game. 21 points off of a 9-kill win. Outstanding stuff. Outstanding calling, like we keep emphasizing. It's Oklahoma who end up with the second place. So the team who lands East Skyhook ends up with a second place out of East Skyhook, which on most POIs makes sense, but in East Sky, it can kind of be like, there are building pick from. How am I going to pick the right one? Oklahoma clearly not overwhelmed. They knew which building was the best to end up in, and they picked properly. Second place for them, even with 5 kills along the way. And KSU Black in the top 3 with a 3rd place. Minnesota State Mavericks in 4th off the back of an 8 KP game. They only got 10th, though. And this is a really interesting start, because when you look at our top 10, realistically, the only team that I fully expected to be very high on the scoreboard, that's even in the top 10, is Southern Miss in 6th place, as well as Ottawa in 7th, I should say. ISU Farmers, another really solid team, they're in 8th, and then below that, it's Bellevue 12th, it's Cumberland 14th, it's TAMU 17th. These are teams that were dominating yesterday, but off to a slow start today, I think, to how high quality this lobby really is, and how a lot of these teams that think they can just pick off players for free on the edge and get massive KP wins like they did all day yesterday aren't going to be able to get away with that today.
Yeah, especially again if we get a skyhook zone. A lot of these compositions that we're seeing, some of these aggressive teams that want to play that edge style, it's not always tailored to World's Edge. World's Edge very much so heavily favors a zone play style, and if you can get yourself a caustic, a zone team playing in the zone in a skyhook zone, no less, and you're nice and nestled up, which we saw, 12 teams all try to do. You're definitely going to be on the better end of it. So maybe a little bit of an anomaly for a first start. Maybe we get a different ring pool for map 2, and maybe it ends up being something a little bit different. We start to see some of these high frag potential teams, live up to that potential. But so far, St. Clair Saints, making a statement. And by the way, they were all the way over in Overlook, not like the longest trek to try to get over into Sky East, but nonetheless, they were able to get there pretty quickly. Overlook actually, does have prio for a lot of the good zones, especially towards the north and the eastern sides of the map. If, however, we were to see Lava Siphon or something like that, it might be a little bit more iffy for the Saints.
Still, though, Skyhook not the highest prio zone for Overlook, so outstanding rotate by the St. Clair Saints all the same. This one seems to be a little bit more central, so as it pulls, we see Ring 2, and it looks to be a little bit more, maybe Mirage be over there, though these can often be some pretty deceiving pullbacks and end up maybe towards a landslide or the train tracks near the center. So Ring 2 is not going to get you an awful lot. If I'm an IGL for a team like maybe St. Clair Saints, for example, coming all the way over from Overlook, or really anybody else who's on quite a long rotate here, my goal is to stop by a POI that's in between myself and Ring 2 and figure out where Ring 3 is going to go, because off of this, other than like Height Mirage and maybe like the southernmost building in Lava Fissure, there aren't really a lot of great high priority spots that you can find in anywhere in where this ring goes. And on top of that, because of all the counter pulls that can happen when it's pulling over here, there's a decent chance that your great spot isn't even in like Ring 3 or 4. So it's going to be very important to figure out where Ring 3 is going to go.
Yeah, like I think if it pulls over more towards like Mirage or Countdown, like maybe some of those caustic teams might be able to get the better of it. But if it pulls over towards Landslide, these zone teams are cooked. Like that's where the edge teams are going to thrive. And I should also mention we do have legend bans in place, so unsure which legend is not going to be playable right now. I'm not seeing a whole lot of caustic, and I'm seeing a couple of teams
Caustic's ban
coming out with the Watson. which does change the calculus at least a little bit. You know, you're not going to have the ability to use that caustic gas in the end game, so you're going to be playing a lot more for the buildings.
Yeah, playing for a lot of those buildings in terms of having that Watson on board is going to be very important. Caustic is pretty good at doing similar things, but realistically, you're looking at a Watson to be very good. But like you kind of pointed out, unless there are a couple pulls towards the far side of Mirage Voyage, you're not necessarily going to have a ton of spots where you can really pick out a nice building. As Iowa State running straight into Dome once again, and I think Penn State is just going to have their nights griefed. Or afternoons griefed, either way, all the same. They are dead in 20th place once again.
Well, yeah, Penn State, one of our teams that, you know, just barely kind of made it in here. 7th place in their qualifier, and the other, Roll Tide and Seek. They want to try and third-party this and try and get in while the action is still hot, but I think Iowa State has already gotten their loot game back up, got their shields back up. I don't know if this really favors Roll Tide and Seek, but one big charged rifle headshot might change the calculus a fair bit. You can see the Ash ultimate coming out as well. Roll Tide and Seek, they want to go in on this, but Right's Wavy gonna fall, and suddenly it's flipped right back on its head. Abysmal gonna get cracked there. They need to try and finish this knock onto Groupty, but it's just not gonna come out. Ash ultimate gonna come out defensively. They go in, able to find the knock, and they are gonna be able to find the full kill on that one. Good stuff for Roll Tide and Seek. It's not going to be a full elimination on Iowa State, as Koryu is going to be able to get out the back door. But a little bit of KP for Roll Tide, not a bad way to kick things off, and it does really hinder the farmers from here on out.
Yeah, not in the slightest. And now you see ISU farmers are going to get punished. They're probably going to be more careful about trying to push neighboring teams in spots like that, but they're going to consistently get thirded for it. But Tamu Maroon don't need to be careful at all. They are running a team down inside of Survey, breaking the entire knockdown shield as the Newcastle tries to res. They do get it off, but here comes Zwifty, knocking one right back down, and it looks like this should be done pretty quickly. A save is knocked as well. Looks like the final from that squadron did manage to get somewhere else, but 2 KP picked up for Tamu.
They're going to get the res over here. Full Sail Armada in a fair bit of trouble here and get taken down by Bellevue. They lose Juxie, but they got the banner, so they should be able to get the res over there. Bellevue, again, one of these teams that you highlighted. With Juxie and Vatari, this is a team that should be making a lot more noise. They did do a fair bit of noise making in our last game, but weren't able to make it as high in the placements or get as much kills as you would like to see from a team like this. Ooh. A zone like we have now could be another good turnaround for them. Speaking of turnarounds, Roll Tide and Seek have turned around right back over towards Stack to try and take another fight, and I don't know if they're ready for this fight.
Yeah, this looks like the rezzed ISU farmers who are now really sticking it to Roll Tide and Seek. Should have just been content with your 2 KP, because now you are getting finishered in the middle of zone. Kamal likely soon to finish off this fight as Abysmal incredibly low on health. Plenty of time to pop that syringe, and they will continue to chase down Abysmal. Only a matter of time until Roll Tide and Seek are shut down in 16th, which is insanely early to get 16th. We have already had 5 teams die by this point, and there might be even more as Ottawa University is looking for kills onto Tamu Maroon.
Very comical how Roll Tide and Seek just got clapped by Iowa State. That'll teach you to pick a fight with Iowa State. They are the ones who starts the fight. But back over to Ottawa University, like you mentioned, they are also in a fight, and Cloaked has already fallen. RJ on the hunt, though, wants to try and confirm these kills. We see Zwifty over there trying to pop that bat there. Nabber's going to fall, though. Zwifty's able to get the bat off, but it's at the cost of one of his comrades. And Swifty going to be the last one alive for Texas A&M Maroon. Not a good situation. Forced to use the Ash ultimate just to try and teleport away. Get a little bit more distance between yourself and the threat. But I don't know if I like these odds right now, Zwifty.
Seems like he's made enough distance, though. They weren't able to reach the Ash TP in time. Zwifty is okay. If he can find any crafter in between himself and the ring, should be chillin'. I don't think Fragment or Monument got them, though, so will be tough to get those banners back if he doesn't get a nice little, very convenient crafter spawn close by, because there aren't any replicators to actually access, at least in ring, for now. Meanwhile, speaking of being in ring 2, maybe even ring 3, it does seem to be a little bit more of a southern side pull within ring 2 for that third ring, kind of pulling towards the no-name just south of Mirage Voyage.
And this is where a lot of these teams that kind of have that more edge playstyle might be favored. Although the new castle being brought into the fold, I don't hate it because you can essentially make your own cover with that with the castle wall. It's going to be another one of those IGL sort of situations where you want to try and identify where the best spot to put that wall down is going to be, and then you get there at the right moment. You can't go too soon or the wall will break. People will just pick at it from afar. You can't let that happen. It's all about the timing. And if your Kennesaw State Black, I don't know if the time is on your side right now.
They do have a very good building here, though. This is one of those spots it can pull that you were kind of pointing out, where if it goes more towards Mirage Voyage, maybe staging, that there are a lot of nice little buildings inside of Ring that you can have pretty ready access to. Georgia Tech Navy, though, not in one of those building spots. Instead, on a very good height, but stuck behind a Newcastle wall with a lot of angles to push them away. This will be tough to rotate out of later. For now, though, content to get some poke. Tiger Shrimp already on purple, but they are getting looked at by Muffins, Gypsy, and Vattery of Bellevue. Something I haven't actually gotten to mention as well is that Muffins, the most experienced Tier 1 player on this team, although a while ago, as he was on Fnatic back in the very early days of Apex for their competitive roster. So even though it's been a while since he's played much comp, last really being on Complexity in late 2023, still a very successful player in his own right who could probably be a very smart leader of the squad and taking up the anchor on the Watson.
Definitely knows all the way to the pixel how far you can stretch those fences out. Very good perimeter setting up there from Muffins. And hey, you know, sometimes it's like riding a bicycle. You never forget. Maybe it's a little bit slow at first, but you get yourself back into it. And with people like with Vattery on your squad, you will be getting yourself back into it. As Ottawa University over here in this other no-name POI gonna hunt down CSU Fullerton, and once again Zwifty is gonna be on the run from the Law, but this time I think the Law is going to win as the Peacekeeper being brought right to the front door, but the knock actually gets traded out there. Zwifty making his presence known, nearly find the knock onto RJ. The PK shots aren't binding, and Zwifty has somehow managed to turn this. It looks like the ring is going to be where Zwifty falls. You don't kill me, only I kill me.
And I think Mav barely was able to get the Ringe off as well, so it looks like the reset will happen. If Zwifty had been able to live just a little bit longer, or deal just a bit more damage, then I think the ring would have killed both of them together. Instead, now it's Cumberland looking for a fight inside of the ring, with a quieter, one of the more dominant teams, but they are still able to steamroll squads like Gamerhawks Navy in a straight 3v3. And right afterwards, they are up looking at their different angles, making sure they don't get thirded before Maple stops to loot with her squad mates and make sure they are all as kitted to the nines as they could be.
Yeah, we got a couple of rough PK shots, but Zach W. Keys comes in and just shows us exactly how the PK shots are supposed to be. It's supposed to be the headshots for the 100 damage, because that gun is in a very balanced spot right now. Very controversial weapon, that PK. One of the most used weapons, I believe, right now in Pro League, if not the most used, alongside, again, you know, Charge Rifle, 30-30 Vattery. Gonna once again make that PK felt. Using the altar to try and get up to the top there. Gets a couple of knocks. Newcastle Res is going to come out, and Georgia Tech Navy, they might be stuck up here, up on top of their Gilded Throne, but it's going to be their final resting place as Bellevue will be able to finish off. Muffins gets the bleed out there. But from afar, some more Charge Rifle shots coming out. Speaking of Charge Rifles, Cumberland over here up on the high ground on the train tracks. Have one of their own alongside the 30-30. And it's Iowa State on the other side trying to get a res.
They've made their way into a very good building and staging, and this continues to pull down into staging. It's just like I said, it looks like it could very easily be a hard Mirage pull, but there aren't a ton of zones that go there, and a lot of the ones that look like they might can be very deceiving. Iowa State able to come through on the edge. They have their cake, and they eat it too. They get all the KP early as they get 2 full squad wipes. They reset everybody. They have plenty of time to loot the entire map, and they walk in to a great spot in zone as there is an insane 198 from distance with the Charge Rifle.
Yeah, we're seeing why, like, everywhere you look, it's 30-30s, it's Charge Rifles, it's PKs.
Yeah.
Right now you can see Cumberland, Maple trying to get a couple 30-30 shots down over towards Bellevue. Bit of an odd spot for Cumberland to be. Like, they have the height, but they know that at any moment Bellevue could be knocking at their back door, so they can't really hold this position as comfortably as they want to. They know they have to try and make a move and potentially risk giving up this spot. It's either that or stand your ground when the next round comes your way, as the next ring is going to start to close on Bellevue. And they're still in the ring, so they're still safe, so it's not coming just yet. But it's still a sword of Damocles hanging above their heads.
Still plenty of time for some of these squads who don't quite have that Ring 4 information. They decide what they want to do should it not pull to them, but you can see San Jose State, they put everything on this coming to Mirage Voyage. Viking Cap is at 1450 Evo away from getting to purple. He will not be able to hit purple, almost surely. And he's going to have, with his whole team, the toughest rotate of anybody in the lobby right now is RJ. In the toughest rotate to get out from Landslide, it is not looking easy, but Southern Miss are going to try and hold this team out. Ottawa have already lost one member, but Manksta a little bit aggressive, almost losing his life for it, and actually does get taken down by RJ. So Ottawa with every opportunity to turn the tables here.
You can see they know it. They want to try and turn this one. RJ goes in with the PK shots, hits for 50, hits for 80, and then another shot, and Southern Miss. As quickly as they came, they've been dispatched. And some of these teams that predicted that the ring would pull over towards Landslide now are in trouble as they have to try and make that Southern rotation. And it's Landslide. There's no cover. There's no real safe way to approach. Even bringing a Rampart, trying to make your own cover, it wasn't enough for Southern Miss. And it's not going to be enough for San Jose State as they are down to just one. Cumberland have managed to hold their ground up here on the high ground, and this looks pretty good, at least for the next ring.
Yeah, at least for Ring 4, but we can already see Ring 5, and it's counter-pulling again. It's going to ping-pong, excuse me.
Ping-pong, yeah. My favorite game.
Yeah. Oh, yes, of course. The dollar store version of it because someone copyrighted ping-pong. It's good, but it's going to ping-pong back up to that top left side, back up to that northwest side of Ring, to a spot where it really feels like there are not going to be many spots to play in come Ring 5. If many at all. It'll probably be like 2 or 3 teams remaining after Ring 4 ends up fully closing up. But either way, it's very clear that a lot of these teams that tried to play hard zone didn't get the pull that they wanted, and now are also stuck on blues while having to rotate into that next ring. And St. Clair's, just one of them, Rusty, still only on blue shields, and he'll have to manage quite a significant rotate in 45 seconds. You'd imagine they'll have to take the fight on this.
Oh, more than just one fight, as we still have 9 squads left, and there are threats lurking in every nook and cranny, and in this one nestled tightly is Kennesaw State Black. Again, they have a good spot for the ring, but they'll have to make a move eventually. At least for now, though, they want to stand their ground. Monkey sees RJ over through the lens of the charge rifle. It's just waiting for the opportunity to get that one pot shot. RJ knows they can see him too, so they're like not going to try and take that fight.
Gosh, Nav got a double nade in the meantime. Bellevue seemingly ready to try and push up. St. Clair State's fully go down to Mav, getting 2 of those kills, and Minnesota State Mavericks will go down next to Bellevue, getting aggressive, and the rat of San Jose State finally gone. So it seems like a lot of these top teams that I was expecting personally, all making it very far. Ottawa, Iowa State, Bellevue, and Cumberland all still up. Kennesaw State Black as well, also here. A team that are kind of like San Jose State tier, where you saw them around a lot in old collegiate. They could get some very good placement, but maybe not the threats to really win these tournaments. They're already making their name felt. With only 2 KP, they are in 3rd place on the day.
Well, Zach WK still making his name felt with that Craver shot. That was on to RJ. Big shot coming out with only 5 squads left. Getting a full knock on a team, especially one like Bellevue over here, would be insane going forward here. Zach's trying to find another shot onto Muffins, but Muffins, you know, doing a little dance, a little bit of a AD strafe and making it hard to hit. And Zach, not going to waste the ammo just yet, and be content to hold on right now as Cumberland basically have both of these 2 teams surrounded, as a matter of fact. You see Mav and you see Cloaked over there as well, and the 30-30 shots ringing out. Mav going to get knocked. The res trying to come out from Cloaked, but I don't know if we're actually going to be able to pick Mav up, so even still, it's going to be a rough one here.
Yeah, they nearly hit the shots through the smoke. Nice try from Maple. Knocked down on a Cloak, though, as this res just kind of let everybody in the lobby know that there was a team not in full power on the bottom side of Bridge. As a result, Ottawa are going to let off the flare that gets themselves killed. Iowa State still looking for more kills, though, on the other side of this bridge, but a drop already forced by one member as Kennesaw State Black slowly but surely moving their way up the bridge and doing big damage, along with some assistance from teams nearby as Vatari gets the knockdown on a Koryu. Kennesaw State have been given a way into this next ring by way of the team right in front of them, getting shot at by everybody else in the lobby.
And I love the discipline from Kennesaw State. They understand they got that early knock. They didn't have to go too aggressive, and they saw the shots ringing out from everywhere else. They know if they tried to push too hard onto Iowa State to confirm that one, they would have put their own necks out, and they don't have to do that yet. Right now, Cumberland, though, seemingly have the God spot. They see the res beacons coming out. They know where every other team is lurking, and they have panoptic vision on every other team. And right now, it's Bellevue in Maple's sights, currently stuck in, not even an RV, in the corner of an RV. They have basically the bathroom of an RV to their name at this point in time. And this late in the game, with no caustic, that is not the kind of place you want to be. And as soon as they come out, you got to know Cumberland is going to be making their presence felt.
Cumberland, all right, this is the closest I have ever seen someone to a respawning player. I didn't even realize you could get this close to a dropship. And the PK's gonna hit for 84! Corey with barely any health left, but unfortunately, Zach just a bit off the mark. Somehow missing out on that opportunity, and ISU Farmers will get everybody back. That was like right there, and the shots through the bridge aren't able to land either. Kindly Monkey could have had the knockdown to grieve ISU Farmers and maybe lock in a couple extra KP for KSU Black, but instead, it's top 4 squads, top 12 players, and on the top of the rock that the zone pretty much ends on, it's Cumberland. You have to imagine in the God spot.
Yeah, Zach nearly gave up the God spot, you know, got really aggressive trying to confirm that kill, but like for a split second did a 180 and decided to stay, nope, okay, we gotta hold this. You know, I don't know about you, but my heart stopped. And if you're Iowa State Farmers, I imagine your heart's gonna be stopping here very shortly as well. Bellevue University have managed to make it out of that RV and set up the gen directly below Cumberland. They have the altars, so they might be able to try and go for a contest on this, but it's gonna be bloody. If they do it sooner rather than later, some of these lower ground teams might actually be able to make something happen. Void Nexus going to be thrown out by Maple. Cumberland want to be able to go aggressive and come back in. But they have to worry about Bellevue. This is a real crunch time situation for Cumberland. They have a lot of options in front of them, but only one of them is the correct one. Which do they commit to? They have to make a move right now. Kennesaw State, though, going to go all in on ISU Farmers right now, and it's bloody. A knock on both sides. We're going to see more KP or PK shots coming out. Is Corey, you going to be the last one to fall, and Iowa State will be dispatched. We're down to just 3. It's Bellevue, it's Cumberland. And these two still trying to fight over this God spot. More PK shots coming out from Muffins down below. Not able to find anything. Cumberland do not want to give this spot up.
Yeah, absolutely don't, and you can see Bellevue just trying to poke the bear a little bit, force a fight between themselves and the team on high ground. They know that if they drop down and fight the team low, they're basically just playing for second, and obviously, you never want to just willingly say, we're giving up on first place. Sometimes it's the right play, but they see a pathway to first here, and they're going to try and take that as Cumberland tries to take this fight soon.
You also have to worry about Kennesaw State, who is down
Watson
there on
Gen.
the low ground. Watson Gen, just like you said, is going to be blocking a lot of this damage, but it's not going to be blocking enough. Is Maple the last one for Cumberland? They had to give up the God spot. They had to try and make this play, and she's trying to make her presence felt. Vattery with the PK shots. Bellevue is going to fall.
What?
And Cumberland, by the skin of their teeth, will be the last one standing. I literally don't know how that happened. I am assuming Maple was just able to survive long enough in the ring to get like one parting shot in, but that was a nail biter.
Absolutely, it looked like Cumberland were screwed on that drop down. They had a Gibby ult, they had a Sparrow ult, they had everything they could possibly chuck, all the nades they had in pocket, going into a Watson generator. We all know that that's not going to end well. All of that utility basically did nothing for Cumberland. They dropped down, 2 people get murked immediately, but what I think happened is that from the low ground, Kennesaw State Black must have alter TP'd up or taken an evac tower. I think that the alter port is a little more likely, but they took that up and tried to third party the fight, only found Bellevue, and Cumberland just kind of chilled in the corner. It looks like you said, Maple, that last player left alive, well, she was just allowed to just sit in the corner and wait for everybody else to kill each other. This is the second game now where we've seen an end game won by the team not who took the most aggressive fight or tried to fight tooth and nail for the KP, but the ones who let everything happen around them and just tried to clean things up when they had to. Not everything needs a reaction. Sometimes you can just sit back and watch, and that's all that Maple had to do.
What's that old meme? Luigi wins by doing nothing. I don't know if I would say Cumberland did nothing. They definitely made some moves. And let's have a look at the standings as back-to-back World's Edge maps that were an anomaly. Not at all what we thought we would see. We now see Kennesaw State Black at the top of things at 30 points with 25 for St. Clair Saints just below. That's our map 1 winners. And Cumberland, despite getting the map win, only able to eke their way up into 4th place with 21 points. Remember, this is match point, and you got to try and get yourself up to 50 points. We also have a 5 map minimum, so we will end things either on Storm Point or beyond. But we still got 2 maps of E-District, and things are already not at all what we could have ever expected.
It is a very solid start for Kennesaw State Black at the very top of the leaderboard. And then, like you said, and not what we had expected, though that last game, I think a bit of a return to expectations for most of us, especially since there were so many fights that happened so early. It makes sense that this would tend to favor some of the teams that are going to be much better at fighting. Teams like Ottawa, Cumberland, Bellevue, Iowa State were able to get a lot of KP very early. The overstat quality score, which is kind of a measure for how many teams were alive later and later into the game, was only 2 out of 10 there, 2.07 out of 10, which is to say that a lot of teams died very early. Naturally, that's going to favor a lot of the teams that we consider to be some of the best fighting teams in the lobby, like the teams who just made massive jumps on the scoreboard, with Ottawa going up 4 places, Cumberland moving up 10, and Bellevue moving up 7, Iowa State Farmers even jumping up 2. So, these teams are in very good positions for the rest of the game. A return to form for many of them in Game 2.
Yeah, especially Kennesaw State, though. I do want to highlight them because they're one of the teams, like, I remember last time I came in and casted Octane Collegiate, it was a Kennesaw State team that ended up winning the whole thing. This is a school that very much so prides themselves on all of their big historic wins in the Octane Collegiate scene. I believe they are, among one of the winningest teams that we have. A lot of their wins came very early on. And that kind of leaves them with a legacy to live up to, as some of these other teams that you highlight seem to be trying to come up into the forefront and make their name and stake their claim at the top of the mountain. So for Kennesaw State, after World's Edge to be up at the top with a 5-point lead over the next best team and to consistently be in these endgame situations, I think that is a return to form if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, absolutely. And already 2 games in, the tournament clearly heating up. But before we get into our next game, our next map, we want to thank the people who helped make this tournament possible, and that is Proton Privacy, the sponsors of the Octane Proton Kickoff, and the people behind Proton Mail, the world's most private and secure email service. With Proton Mail, your emails are protected with end-to-end encryption, meaning no one, not even Proton, can read your messages. It is trusted worldwide for users who want security without giving up ease of use. And if you want to try it out, you can type !Proton in chat, !Proton, and sign up for free using the link there. Once again, that is !Proton. That command in chat will give you the link to sign up. Thank you so much to Proton Privacy and to Bear Claw Esports for sponsoring this tournament and giving us a wonderful little kickoff event to preview what's going to happen in Octane Season 4, which is to come. And I think the official start of the season is just about a month from now. But we've reached the start of game number 3 and the very first game on E-District.
And here's the interesting thing, I believe, is after that last map, Alter is now banned. Alter, one of the strongest legends in the game when it comes to E-District, because it's basically one big skyhook. So all of the things that we talked about, how you're going to be using the teleports through walls and the Void Nexus to try and play those buildings, well, that's all E-District. That's not what is going to happen here. So I predict, at least personally, that we're going to see a lot more teams trying to go for the Ash in place of the Altar. Maybe a couple teams might try and bring Wraith to the forefront. We'll have to see. But making it this far and already not having access to Caustic or Altar is a big blow for a lot of these teams.
And here we see a little bit of E-District happening. And I don't mean like that's a phrase where like me like trying to crutch something and not knowing what to talk about. That's not me saying like a random crutch phrase because I don't know what to say. This is just what happens to the zones sometimes. If you see ring 1 there, that looks like Lotus, maybe Edam, maybe it counterpulls to like outside City Hall. But as someone who, I'm not going to say I'm like an actual comp IGL, I just like scrimming with my friends over the summer. But I did IGL for us, and pretty much every time I would make a call on E-District, you'd say, or this could go Energy Bank. And this one is one of those rings where it just kind of inexplicably goes to Energy Bank, as Jose on KSU is already on the wrong end of a Minnesota Mavericks int, and they've already lost a member, and it doesn't seem like Minnesota State are stopping any time soon. And Void and Kindly Monkey are even going to make the call to split up, try and get them to chase one. and let the other get away to maybe get a reset already.
It's not a PK. The EVA 8, unfortunately, is not going to be good enough, as Kindly Monkey is going to fall, and Void, the only white armor, is going to be on the run. And Ottawa University, another one of these high KP teams, also getting into an early skirmish over here against Georgia Tech Navy. A lot of teams want to try and scrap with some of these white shields. They want to try and get their armor game up, getting into that late game, but when you start fighting like this, only a scant few are going to be able to make it, and Ottawa University are going to make sure that it is them, as Tiger Shrimp is going to fall, courtesy of a little bit of stray damage there from Mav, and as Flip falls, Georgia Tech Navy will be the first team to hit the showers.
And Ottawa University already had pretty good guns coming out of their spawn. We're seeing PKs, R9s, 30-30s already. They also basically get another team to loot a different POI for them and then pick up all of that from that squadron. Kennesaw State Black is fully killed off as San Jose ended up getting one of those kill points. Void tried to get a little bit of a reset inside of draft point. So not all 3 KP give it up to Minnesota State, but they get 2. San Jose State gets 1, and Kennesaw State, our first place team, gets a 19th place in game number 3. It seems like it's going to be a rough E-District to come for them, especially given that they are landing at one of the worst POIs in the game on any competitive map, which is Settlement, also known as Slums.
It does also ensure, by the way, that we will most likely have, I believe, 4, potentially 5 maps before any teams actually do become eligible for match point, because Kennesaw State was at 30 points. They're going to be walking away with nothing, and the next highest team was, I believe, St. Clair Saints with 25. And they're going to have a nuclear game if they want to try and break that 50 threshold. And, you know, I don't want to say I don't see it happening. It could happen. Crazier things have happened, especially on E-District. Anything can happen, especially with the legend bans that we have. But it's going to be, you know, like a 1 in a million kind of situation, especially when you have Ottawa University out for blood. You can already see low health bars through the walls right now. Ottawa University, more than likely the cause of that. And they're not content with just a little bit of blood. No, they want their pound of flesh. In fact, we'll take a whole meal out of it.
Bang ult to try and put threats on Gamerhawks Navy. Gamerhawks responding with a bang ult of their own, as well as giving them a little bit of time to pop some heals. Mav also taking a ton of damage on that lowest floor. So Gamerhawks Navy very content to just fend off Ottawa University for now, but it's a similar situation to where we saw the Gamerhawks Navy in game number 1 against ISU. It's not the kind of team that's going to run away when you do damage to them. In the meantime, Minnesota State Mavericks are going to have to run away because they've lost a teammate elsewhere, and that is a rough continuation to their game. Got a good start with some KP. It's not continuing so well as Abysmal with a rough start for Roll Tide and Seek.
Now, you think the PK is overpowered. Now just wait till you're seeing it through an amped shield there coming out. Again, another odd decision to bring the Rampart to Aegis, but hey, you know, it pays off. Ottawa University trying to confirm the last little bit of KOs there onto Gamerhawks Navy, and they will do just that. Gamerhawks is one of these teams that loves to try and play in buildings, try and play very defensively, and you know, sooner or later, you're going to be overcome by the tsunami of teams that come your way, and this time it's Ottawa that are going to be able to best them. As we see this ring start to pull, it's still kind of anywhere, like you said, could pull Energy Bank, and Energy Bank is one of those weird POIs for this one that's basically just one big bowl of death. An endgame kind of situation there it's always tricky because a lot of teams are hesitant to try and hold in Energy Bank, even if they think it might be the ring pulling there. Some teams that might know it's going to pull there, and they're going to be a little bit more safe, but if you don't have that intel and you're just trying to get in late, it's going to be disastrous.
Yeah, the other thing about E-Bank is, if you tell me it's going E-Bank, like, that barely narrows it down.
But
that could be like, there are 4 different quadrants and the middle, and then there are like sections within those quadrants, and each like little quadrant of like northeast, northwest, most of them have like multiple different total areas that it can pull. So E-Bank is a very hard zone to predict. I say this about Skyhook, and I also can say it about E-Bank. I think it's where IGLs really earn their paychecks. If you can tell me where an E-Bank zone is going ring 2 and pick out the god spot to play for the rest of the game, like, you earned your money, as it is a massive scuffle on the edge with Iowa State Farmers getting some good entry damage off the back of Group D's charge rifle and forcing an Ash TP away from Schmalz and Trevmichi.
Might not be the god spot, but wherever Group D is standing with this charge rifle is the demon spot. Again, just trying to peek on down. It's a couple shots down range, but it's not going to be enough to find any knocks. Nothing that we can really convert into a kill, though. But Southern Miss, they want to get a little bit of killing done of their own. Swifty, though, with a PK, is going to return the favor. Sales coming through, and Texas A&M Maroon is going to be dispatched. Southern Miss able to hold on. Not a bad start for them.
No, not a bad start at all. One of the teams that we considered one of the favorites, not only because they have a Pro League player in Thales, not only because Viz and Mangsta both have a very good track record of some solid CC performances over the course of a couple of years, but because they're also the school that won Octane Collegiate Season 3. So obviously you expect them to do quite well, and they are in 7th at the moment, kind of on the upswing after a great game number 2 with 7 kills and 3 placement points on top, or 2 placement points and a 10th place finish. So expecting to see Southern Miss start to catch fire soon. But either way, that's going to come with taking some fights on the edge, and a lot of teams really leaving themselves vulnerable. Maybe not rotating fast enough and getting caught out by some of these better teams. We saw it happen to Gamerhawks, Navy, and Shipyard. A couple big mistakes by some of these less experienced rosters. We got to try and cut corners on our loop path. You don't need the bells and whistles. You need to not die in your spawn.
Yeah, especially on a map like E-District, and especially, again, where the ring is going to be E-Bank. Like, you do want to try and get to somewhere safe before it's too late. There's going to run out of real estate very shortly. It's a gold rush, and you can already see, over here in the ring, even in the center, like, UHE Varsity right now are not playing where the next ring is going to pull, but they still believe that they're safe, so they're going to hold this building on for dear life, and so is just about every other team here. Ottawa University, though, is going to be one of those ones that are a little bit more late to the party, and without the altar, they might struggle to be able to get in, so they want to at least nest themselves somewhere where they have the leverage to get in, but not necessarily, pull the trigger too soon.
Round 2 closing. Bellevue are in next ring, and it looks like Cloaked and RJ might be for now, but Bellevue are very much making sure that if they choose to cross any further, it's straight through their line of sight. RJ cracked again down to 50 HP. Cloaked trying to take a little bit of the shots for his teammate. As Vatari pops a Bangalore ultimate, might be a little bit far to really be massively impactful, but he actually catches Cloaked, trying to run straight into them, sprinting through the Bangle, taking big damage from it, but it was because they got some very good entry damage. They want to capitalize if they can. It looks like Bellevue instead opting to just back off and maybe play around the choke just a little bit more.
But neither team is able to confirm any knocks, and even though the damage trades feel like they're favoring Bellevue, you can still see blue shields across the board. Juxi nearly getting dealt with there on some 30-30 damage. Has to try and go for the shield bat, so they can't try to convert onto this, so it's a stalemate still between those two teams. As we head on over to Southern Miss briefly, see them getting a little bit of KP under their belt. And back on over to where nothing ever happens is Ottawa and Bellevue still going at it, still not able to find any knocks on one another. Cloaked has managed to move up, sees the Watson fences, and can't go any further. Juxi, Castle Doctrine standing his ground there. Muffin's going in with the PK. Big shot coming out and the knock onto Mav, and suddenly Bellevue are firmly in control of this fight. As we're going to see the Mirage ultimate come out. Which one is the real one? Doesn't matter. All right, we'll just take the KP and be happy that we did. Whichever one used the real one, wherever you manage to slink off to, you better stay there and hide.
That's exactly what RJ is going to do, even popping the heal so he can literally hide and go invisible. Here's an Ash TP nearby, and I believe that's Roll Tide as RJ going to get caught out. Abysmal does end up with one of those KP, so Roll Tide kind of walk backwards into some KP and locking in a placement point as look at this ring pull. This is what I'm talking about with Energy Bank. This is where the IGLs earn their paycheck, and I'll tell you what, Cumberland, I'm pretty sure they have their players on scholarship. I think that's how they got such a good roster. He's earning every penny, because they are the only team in Ring 4 right now.
That must be a major in IGLing right now, but Minnesota State and Roll Tide and Seek both are in harm's way right now, colliding into one another, and we see the shield cracks coming out from both sides as Roll Tide and Seek will be taken down by Minnesota State Mavericks. This is another team that has consistently been pretty high on the KP front. Right now, it looks like they're sitting at 3 as a collective. They haven't been quite as successful as some of these other heavy-hitting teams, though. Nevertheless, they have managed to make a dent in some of these other smaller teams, as it were, as St. Clair Saints, up towards the top of the leaderboard, have the opportunity to try and make a climb, maybe even make a jump into first place. Have already lost Rusty G in a fight with San Jose State, one of the teams towards the lower ends that has a lot of ground to make up. Once again, both teams are going to retreat and try and play for placements. Again, this is classic E-District. A lot of this poke and prod and retreat. Even without the altar, they're still going to try and adhere to that same altar playstyle.
It was a really good Wraith portal that was barely able to get Rusty G knocked out of the way. They somehow were able to sneak them out. Well, try and sneak your teammates out, but you start to think about where are we going to move in. It looks like that Wraith portal probably had to go a little bit more into the central part of E-District, so what's the next spot you're going to play for? Where can you manage to find somewhere safe in ring? It's not going to be easy for that squad moving in. Claire Saints, the second place team on the day thanks to a big game one, but it's not going to be easy for Bellevue either, as it looks like Buttery kind of being forced to run away, but he really doesn't have anywhere to go. His back is to the ring, he's at 1 HP, and he's fully gone in 14th as Southern Miss really are starting to heat up here on E-District with a big squad wipe.
I disagree. He had one place to go, straight back to the lobby, and that's where Southern Miss sent him. CSU Fullerton will be there to keep him company, though, and there might be a few more other teams, lining up to head on back here soon. St. Clair Saints, you can see the health bars all super low. Rusty G, mentioned he got knocked early on. Well, goes right back down. St. Clair Saints getting taken down, I believe, by OU Esports. Nestled behind this castle wall. Another knock coming through. San Jose State. It's getting real bloody here. Steffi just stumbles upon a bunch of low HP targets. Thinks I'll have a go at that. Some PK shots ringing out. And OU Esports is going to be the next to fall. And the reses will come through as San Jose State are making themselves a nice little climb here on E-District.
Yeah, really good calls by San Jose. You recognize we're not in a great spot to rotate to ring fast. Why not try and clear our backs and take care of everybody nearby, especially as a very well-established, well-coordinated collegiate Apex team. You know that not only are you great individuals, but you know each other a lot better than some of these teams might. Team that has realistically been in the Octane scene for I think multiple years. I've been seeing Viking Cap on squads for a long time. So makes sense that they're going to trust their ability to team fight. They trusted it very well. They pick up a lot of KP here, and they bump up decently high on the scoreboard. Coming in, they weren't necessarily the best spot. Now, they're in 10th place on the day, and still plenty of potential to make that even better. As it's only 9 teams remaining, they'll probably be able to find a safe spot in Ring 4. Ooh, unless they get crazy.
Yeah, that would be one way to lose your spot that you fought so hard to keep. Gravity not going to be able to connect on this exchange, but there's always going to be another day. Western Outlaws having a bit of a rough day, sitting in 12th place, looking to try and break into that top 10. But like we said, it's match point. Top 10 doesn't matter. You got to try and make a bigger climb than that. And Noxady going to take a little bit of 30-30 shots, think better of it, and retreat on back to safety. And it's going to be difficult to make a climb if you're too scared to go out the front door. I can tell you that much.
Southern Miss having a tough time making their trek to the opposite side of the map. They do get some nade damage in. Minnesota State Mavericks only need a little more damage, though, to finish this off, and they will get that which they desired. As Southern Miss down in 9th place. Good little corner here for Minnesota State Mavericks, as they're able to shut down Southern Miss early. Good KP game for Southern Miss, but the Season 3 champions aren't able to get much more placement than they already had, as it is a lot of teams towards the bottom of the scoreboard alive still.
Speaking of KP, 12 for Minnesota State Mavericks. It's an insane game for them. It's been a few insane games. Like I said, another one of these high KP teams, and they've managed to climb themselves into 3rd place. And if they can close this one out, they might make that leap all the way up into 1st place. San Jose State still trying to make a climb of their own, currently sitting at 10. And they're in a bit of a pickle here, as the ring is cutting off their ideal angle of approach, but also their best friend, keeping that other threat there at bay. So the question, if you're San Jose State, is how exactly do you rotate out of here safely? Because you got Iowa State on one side, the ring on another, and about 1,000 other teams looking at you from afar, just waiting for you to poke your head out. Your Iowa State, I kind of like their position a little bit better of these two.
Yeah, Iowa State in a decent spot, but neither one of them really in the best spot in the game. Cumberland, a team who has no KP, they've been banking on being in the best spot in ring all game long, are going to lose a member. Someone's been knocked down. That could open them up to possibly getting ran at, as Western Outlaws on the top side of this house could possibly take this fight soon. They seem eager to do so. Try and find a way in. Goblin on top does a little bit of damage with the R9, but still not quite the entry they were looking for. Really good Watson fence to at least slow down the push that could come through. And off the back of a stun, now they're going to find their opportunity. Now Locksanity is going to find a knockdown. There is a bit of a fight back still left in Cumberland yet. He's going to knock down Slasher. Goblin on top goes for the reset, but still Cumberland on the back foot in that fight. Western Outlaws should be near some KP locked in here as more damage onto Penn State on the outside.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's trying to third this exchange. They know that this is where a big fight is kicking off. It looks so juicy, like fish in barrels, but with now the Bangalore Ultimate's raining out, you want to try and get inside or play around some of these Watson gens as best you can. Minnesota State Mavericks, one of the teams that decided not to try and go for the third. It's a good call. I like this because you can see how bloody things are in the kill feed. Minnesota State just happy to let the bloodbath commence, go in and pick their spot, and they have now found it. One knock coming out, the Spitfire shots ring it out, and Full Sail Armada thought they had a good spot, but that is going to be property of Minnesota State Mavericks, who catapult themselves up into first place.
Meanwhile, Western Outlaws, the team that we just saw trying to take a fight, or rather having a fight taken onto them, I think they've locked in a little bit of KP in that engagement. 2 KP up to this point in the game, and probably 1 or 2 more players who are down. That could get finished off later, but they've had a lot of their team members downed as well. A very fragmented squad. We've got 4 less players alive than we could have up to this point. We could make it 3 less, as Koryu looking for the crypto res. He will get it off, but now that's going to be a target on their backs, as Schmalz is going to shut down Western Outlaws to make it top 5 remaining teams with only 11 players and find a knock onto Kamal of ISU Farmers.
Minnesota State Mavericks, it looks like it's written in the stars that this is going to be your map to win, as we're down to just 5 squads, and they have managed to cut a bloody swath through everyone else in this lobby. They've claimed the God spot. Gravity going to drop down, get some more PK damage. Can just try and find the shots onto Zach, but the high ground advantage, not going to be enough. Cumberland will be dispatched, though. We've got Iowa State still in dire straits, and they're going to be felled as well. Now we're down to just 3, and like I said, Minnesota State holding on to this God spot. We've got a rat for both sides. San Jose State will be the next to fall, and with 1 final shot, potentially 2, this should be done. Great shot coming out. Penn State locked in a prison right now.
Braver shot to break the sparrow hole. It isn't necessarily how they teach it to you in school, but it's kind of going to be a formality of an endgame, as they are stuck 2 players behind a Newcastle wall. I will say, credit to Penn State, they finally don't get griefed right off drop by ISU Farmers, and eventually they outplaced the ISU Farmers on E-District. Unfortunately, not quite enough to sneak into first place as Minnesota State Mavericks. You said it best. Everybody else third partying, it's kind of been a theme all day. The team who lets everyone else fight each other and take care of everyone else in the lobby, left to their own devices at the very end in the God spot, ends up getting yet another win today. And in this case, it's Minnesota State Mavericks clearing out that high ground and letting everyone else turn into 1 or 2 man squads, and they can just run them all down.
And this is one of the things, like, Minnesota State Mavericks was not one of the teams that you or I really had our eyes closely on, you know, in the very beginning. They're not one of the teams that we were considering like our, you know, big 6, kind of top 6, 7 teams. Not really on either of our teams' radars, but a lot of those teams in our top 6 are very aggressive teams. They like to try and take fights. They have that confidence. They believe that they can play this edge style, be super aggressive, take a lot of fights. But that's going to mean a lot of third parties. That's going to mean a lot of the teams that are waiting and picking their spots and are also capable of getting high KP games like Minnesota State. Today might just be their day. It might just be the rings are pulling their way. They've got the right drops and they're picking the right moments. The IGLing is just on point today. And can you really overcome luck?
I don't know. At this point, it seems like they've been replicating these results so consistently. It might be a little more than luck, but even still, finding these consistent spots so good has found Minnesota State Mavericks atop the leaderboard, the first team to get very close to match point, 1 point away from locking in match point. They could be on match point. They could have been on match point going into game 4, as that was a 22 kill win for Minnesota State Mavericks. They got 8 KP in 10th game 1, and then a 7th with 2 in game 2. So they were a pretty solid contender after those first couple games for sure. But this game, I would imagine it'll be the best game we see for the rest of the day. A 22 kill win. to propel yourselves from 8th place into first and 1 point off match point. You were saying you didn't even know if the second team was going to be able to reach match point, and rightfully so, because no one other than that 30-point KSU Black squad was all too close to hitting match point, and we almost just saw the 8th place team do it after a dominant E-District game. Fortunately for us, though, we get more Apex to watch because we are guaranteed to at least hit a Game 5 the good old-fashioned way without anybody closing it out in Game 4 before the set's even over. Because we're guaranteed at least 5 games today.
I do think it's crazy how I was like, oh yeah, unless someone has a nuclear game right now, we ain't getting anybody on match point. And then Kennesaw State is like one of the first ones gone. And then Minnesota State Mavericks are like, all right, someone has to have a nuclear game. Bet, we're on the case. Yeah. And if they had managed to get one more kill somewhere along the way, they would be on match point. However, we do still have a 5-map minimum, so, it wouldn't be eligible. So maybe it's fine that they're pacing themselves, because now it means that they can kind of just kick their feet up, and as long as they're able to get out of this next E-District with at least 1 point under their belt by hook or by crook, they will be on match point, and they can take the dub when we transition over to Storm Point. But we're still not quite there yet. There is the potentiality for some of these teams to join them. Ottawa University and Kennesaw State Black are both at 30 points. A 20-point or more game would also put them in contention with Minnesota State. Iowa State Farmers also not too far behind with 27. We're likely not going to see another nuclear game of that caliber, but if we do from someone else, there will be some stiff competition for the Mavericks.
How does this go, Ebank?
Oh, no!
If you had given it to me even like 5 seconds sooner, I was about to say before the second ring, if this goes to Ebank, I was gonna say I would do something. Thankfully, I don't have to do that. This is what I'm talking about. This is
congratulate
gameplay.
Minnesota State Mavericks for hitting match point. Congratulations on being the first team to do that, because it's basically a formality at this point with this ring pull.
Now, this is the E-District gameplay that we were seeing last game that I was talking about. It just, every single IGL needs to know by this point, you need to at least say, or this could go Ebank. Like, every time there's any Ring 1 pop at any point, this could always end up going Ebank. And it does 2 games in a row out of hard North Pole's Ring 1. That is
every
insane.
Single IGL in this game just hit tab, saw the map, and said, God damn it, not again.
Well, if they have a Ring console, the ones who don't have a console are going to think this is completely wrong. Like, if you're in Lotus and you don't have a console, you're going to think like, oh, we need to sit in our POI because a lot of teams are going to be running to us. Off Ring 1 pop, that looks like it is going right on your head, and then it is going to 2 POIs away. So you have to sit in your you have to sit in your spawn if you either didn't get a console spawn or you didn't have a console character, and wait for no one to pull up, and then be super late on your rotate. You could even get caught by one of those hard edge teams that we talk about, wanting to run teams down so early on in these past couple games. Either way,
and the thing about Ebank too is that it's just basically one big giant fortress. The only real ways in are through these very narrow choke points. So if you are one of the teams who is late to get there, you're pretty much screwed unless you're the best edge team of all time. Like, you have to be able to take those fights and win them. Speaking of edge teams that love to take fights, what do you know? Ottawa University looking for a little bit more trouble, and by God, they found it.
Doesn't look like they're in much trouble, though. They are very comfortable. Killing Regamores on Georgia Tech Navy. The quietest team so far today. Only a single placement point up to this point in the day. 11th place in Game 2. Otherwise, it's been a rough day for them. They got 20th place in Game number 1, and I fear it'll be a similar story in the second. Flip, already very low on HP, getting ran down on by someone who's played in Pro League before. So that is not a situation you want to be in. Insane super glide from him towards the very end, but he still goes down all the same. It's 3 more KP locked in for Ottawa, Georgia Tech Navy. Well, your E-District games just basically got turned into 2 games that you didn't show up for with 2 straight 20th places.
But you did go out in style. That super glide was very nice. It was good stuff to see. But at the end of the day, they do end up being basically just Evo fodder for one of our top teams, Ottawa University. Again, currently the second place team. Before this was coming in with 30 points. We'll start to see a little bit later on if they're able to make that leap up over Minnesota State Mavericks. Tall task to ask. It's a 19-point chasm between the two, and the Mavericks still have a fair bit to do. Actually, they might be taking an early exit here, as Gravity is the last remaining member. St. Clair Saints have managed to hunt them down. Crack already coming through, and this is looking real rough. Remember when I said you got to try and kick your feet up, play for at least 1 KP? I don't think Gravity got it. And now he's going to have to try and get a res off if they're going to have any hope of getting it. 18 squads remaining, 2 have already been felled. And UCF Knights looking to try and cut that down even further as they found OU Esports hiding behind this castle wall and the shield. Nades ringing out from our saved. Are we going to find any damage off the back of these? Likely not with the Gibby Oval on the other side. Going to be nice and cozy for UCF Knights, and they're happy to just bleed out some resources and head on out as Ottawa find themselves in another scrap.
Unfortunately, this time they're on the wrong end of it because they chose to scrap against Bellevue. 84 for Juxi. That's some good damage, especially since he's likely going to go down soon. He doesn't even end up dying. He was trying to get some damage on his way out. Instead, Cloak left at 1 HP. RJ going to try and come through to help, but Vatari ends up going down. That is a little bit rough for Bellevue, and Cloak never got finished off either. So, a little bit more of an even fight than you might have thought. I think Vatari is going to be able to get picked back up here, but Ottawa clearly very attached to the idea of fighting this, as are CSU Fullerton in the middle of E-Bank. Wanted to try and play for one of the rooms dead center because this could really go anywhere in Energy Bank, but San Jose State are running them down for trying to play there.
This looks like a familiar place for San Jose State to be, and we did see them have a good game last time around, so maybe they were able to try and replicate that success. I mean, very limited success at that, as they weren't able to make it too far, but they managed to get a fair bit of damage and a good bit of KP in as well. Iowa State, speaking of KP, a team that loves to go on the hunt for it. Kamal is found malicious there, but not able to get some good damage trades here. We're actually going to see Group T felled by a PK shot there. Full Sail Armada in this scrap, able to get that res come out. Good use of the Newcastle, another one of these legends that's great on E-District, especially once you start to get playing inside some of these buildings. Full thing coming out onto Group D, and Iowa State Farmers are going to be running away with their tail tucked between their legs, trying to get a reset off that.
And a very interesting fight for this to happen. Iowa State Farmers, one of the most confident fighting teams of the day, already 16 KP through 3 games, on the wrong end of a fight against Full Sail Armada. Not a bad team, but only 2 KP through those first 3 games. So not the way you would expect to see this fight go, but that is a very big momentum shift for Full Sail Armada. But I would imagine that they had the same issue that I was talking about. Full Sail Armada thinking this goes Lotus off of Ring 1, perhaps not having that Ring 2 information any earlier, and they're the team that landed Lotus without a Ring console character. This is exactly what I said could happen on a pullback like this. They felt obligated to sit in their POI on the off chance that someone would end up coming through because they were worried that it was going to be a Lotus pull off that Ring 1 look. Fortunately, when they ended up getting ran down by a really good fighting team like I had expected, they ended up getting some KP out of it, so that's quite solid. But Bellevue, not really in a great spot in this fight.
I still like the train of thought, though. Like, surely it will be an E-Bank pull 2 times in a row, right?
Yeah.
Like, surely we won't be felled like that, you know? We won't be duped by RN Jesus. Penn State, our second place team from the previous map, is going to be falling, and Bellevue University, like you said, in a bit of a rough spot. Juxi has to try and get the shield bat there. They're able to hold on to this high ground, at least for now, but it's going to be a rough trek to try and get out. And Ottawa University, like, again, they really want to try and be one of these teams that breaks into that number 1 spot. They have the opportunity to do it. Cumberland, one of the other teams, gonna find that knock there onto the Koryu. Good place to start. If they can get the full fin here, get a little bit of KP, and indeed they do. Looks like that's all they're going to be able to get for now. But again, Bellevue and Cumberland, 2 teams vying for the top position, so far out of the ring. Like you said, called it potentially incorrectly. They have to get a move on.
Yeah, I think Bellevue is obviously one of the teams that wants to fight a lot more, but even still, needing to get a move on out of Neon Square, and unfortunately, you're stuck on the other side of Ottawa, another team that is super confident in fighting, has very talented players, and wants to take these fights on the edge. So it's not going to be as easy to dispatch of them as it might be other squads. Kamal going down to Thales with the charge rifle. And that is a big, big shot to land for Southern Miss, as ISU Farmers were already fragmented. They had lost their crypto pretty early on of Koryu, and now they've lost Kamal to boot, as Ottawa losing another member. Bellevue consistently getting the better of them, and Vatari and Juxi are trying to sprint them down and finish this squadron off, such that they're almost running into Southern Miss, another team fighting on the edge. There are like 15 teams in City Hall right now.
Well,
it's not pulling here.
I mean, that number is going to be cut down quite swiftly as we're going to see more knocks start to come through when these teams start to collide and the ring continues to close. Bellevue, like you said, running some of these teams down, running right into a lot of these heavy hitters. And again, a team that wants to try and break in and take that new top spot, potentially get themselves postured for a match point game here. Like you said, these 15 teams inside of City Hall right now, Gamerhawks Navy is one of them, and you can see the 30-30 shots coming out from Dizzy to try and get the better of these damage exchanges. Presso has the angle there, and oh, what a headshot there. Takes down Lick Maverick. Mystic Maverick. I'm not sure
the
if that was supposed to
capital
be an L
L.
or an I.
The capital L throws you off.
Yeah, the capital. I thought that would be like a lowercase L because Mystic would make sense, but nevertheless, regardless of what you call it, I call it a confirmed frag coming out there. That's a hell of a shot ringing out. Bellevue continue to try and make a move there, taking down Slasher with some more PK shots. Now fighting in the ring. They have to try and be swift here because these next rings, once this closes in about 10 seconds, it's going to be round 3 rings. Those hurt.
That's Cumberland coming to blows with Bellevue, and all being gatekept by Southern Miss. These top teams are eating each other alive. As Ottawa Not Fully Dead had to reset deep towards Resort, Cumberland is trying to reset in City Hall but might come to blows with one single player of Ottawa, and Bellevue deep in ring are being gatekept by Southern Miss. These are all 4 teams that I highlighted as being some of the best teams coming into today. So it's really concerning to see them doing so much damage to each other in this position on the edge.
As it looks like we have a little bit of a freeze, a tech pause perhaps. So we're going to go ahead and cut to a real quick break while we try and get things going. Don't go anywhere, chat. We'll be right back as soon as we can. This is starting to get interesting, and I know you don't want to miss it, and neither do I. So we'll see you in just a moment. Welcome back from our collective blackout as we all have erased the past like 30 seconds from our memory. Who knows what happened? All I know is we got 15 squads left. It's the southwest corner of eBank, and a lot of these teams did not make the call correctly. Ottawa University, a team trying to make their claim at number 1 spot, is going to fall short as RJ will succumb to the ring, not able to make it to safety. 15th place. And one of our top teams is going to be sent packing.
Yeah, dangerous stuff for that squadron of Ottawa. That is one of the higher up teams on the leaderboard. They and Bellevue bumped up quite a bit off of this game, but they are both dead now. Southern Miss, the only ones who really have a lot of KP and still life yet within the game. Could also look towards a team like Cumberland, as they spent quite a long time on that edge. They came into this game at 25 points. In terms of the amount of KP they've been able to find within this game, it looks like it's only 1 so far, and they've been left as just a rat. Iowa State Farmers also left as just a rat, so I feel like we'll be seeing a similar endgame situation to where we were last time, where about half the teams left in that top 10 were on the very bottom of the leaderboard, which is really interesting to see, and Southern Miss could be going down soon as Cumberland's starting to run them down.
Well, Cumberland also getting ran down. Zach has to try and pop the bat using that knockdown shield for cover, but it's only a white knockdown shield. It's only going to protect you for so long. Is able to get the bat off alive.
Gosh.
And actually, here's the res coming through on the other side with some nice moves there. Hits the PK shots to get the knockdown and deny that res from coming through. Needs to try and get a res of his own, though, onto Maple if possible, but it doesn't look like it's going to be the case. Just has to try and rat for at least now. Southern Miss actually going to fall on the other side there. The full fins coming out, and for Cumberland, Zach is going to be the last remaining member. Like you said, a lot of these top teams are falling very early, and for some of these lower 10 teams, now is the time for them to make their move. Gamerhawks Navy, a team more than capable of doing just that, with 1 Mastiff shot, will put Zach to bed and send Cumberland back to hit the showers.
So I think the scoreboard on the side for us was thrown off a little bit by not being in the game for just a moment. But Either way, Minnesota State Mavericks dead, Ottawa University have been fully dead, Bellevue dead, Southern Miss died during that scuffle, Cumberland also died there, and I think ISU were at least in a really bad spot, if not fully dead, and yeah, they've got one guy left standing in a corner in the middle of E-Bank. These are the teams we thought would be the best squads today, and they're not going to be able to hit match point off of Game 4, and Kennesaw State Black, really the only team alive, still towards the top of the leaderboard, are going to have to fight for themselves, but Kylie Monkey left alone and just can't quite get the damage, but he finally locks out that last kill. Barely any health left on him though, so he'll get third-partied, and Full Sail Armada come through with the KP they needed. A heroic performance. We've been seeing a lot of kills for those Armada boys, a team that really needed it, as one of the lower placing squads on the leaderboard coming in, already up to 14th off this game.
Yeah, and even though our leaderboard on the side is a little bit out of date, at 14th place, like you said, they do have a lot of ground that they need to make up, and one of the lower 10 teams have the opportunity to do it if they can keep the KP going. UCF Knights, another one of those teams, still trying to make their way in. Roll Tide and Seek, one of those teams. They're going to take down Gamerhawks Navy with some PK shots, but the third party coming out, you have to be good with these shots, and they are not good enough as CSU Fullerton will be able to confirm that one, and they have a pretty good spot here. You can see that Craver shot as well coming through. Truthfully able to get some good loot off of this one. CSU Fullerton, I actually really like this position. As long as they can keep that other team behind that door in check, they're in a good place to take this whole thing, as we're down to just 17, and St. Clair Saints, with that Rampart amp damage, hitting the 30-30 shots, nearly able to find a knock. They seem to have the god spot, actually, with some of those Rampart walls fixed early up with the ring and potentially the final ring centered right on top of them. I kind of love that spot.
From what I can gather, the highest up on the scoreboard remaining team is the St. Clair Saints in 6th place, the winners of game number 1, and even they might have died during the moment where we weren't able to keep the broadcast up. But like, look at the teams that we know are still standing. San Jose State are one of the highest up ones, and they're only in 9th. OU Esports, Western Outlaws, we know Gamerhawks Navy's still up. We know Full Sail Armada's still up. CSU Fullerton, we know, are still up. I think UCF Knights Academy are even still standing, and here they are right now. We're staring at them. It's a lot of teams that needed a good game here, getting it right when they needed to. We're going to have a lot more of a competitive lobby coming out of game number 4, because this is a big boost to some of those teams who were in the single digits coming into this game.
Well, it's time to double up those digits as best we can. As we got that brief glimpse of the map, we saw a lot of teams outside the ring, so this is going to get real bloody. And for Texas A&M Maroon, you have to try and make your way in. Going to utilize the Gibby bubble just to have a safe haven, at least for now, but it's only going to be a temporary home, an Airbnb that soon they're going to have to vacate. And Full Sail Armada left theirs dirty, and the homeowners want to come back and claim it. UCF Knights, again, I love this positioning with the Rampart walls, with the Shiloh ringing out. Malicious going to go ahead and pop that Wrecking Ball, but it might not be enough to break the wall. It doesn't find what it needs to. And UCF Knights still holding strong here. Full Sail Armada is going to be felled. We're down to 6. San Jose State have Rampart shields of their own. CSU Fullerton will fall. Another one of these teams that had good positioning are falling, so the god spot is up for anyone to claim. Texas A&M Maroon have lost a member trying to get on in there. I don't know if I like their chances, but at this point, it realistically is anyone's game.
On my marker.
And so now we have only 5 teams remaining, and the scoreboard on the side is up to date to keep up with that. St. Clair Saints, San Jose State, Western Outlaws, UCF Knights Academy, and TAMU Maroon. Some big names here in terms of historically successful organizations. St. Clair, San Jose, and TAMU, all teams, all colleges we've seen around, but TAMU not likely to stay up anymore. It's just Nabber, who got bumped into ring by the edge of the rock. He barely manages to keep himself up. And only 10 seconds until he has to move. And fun fact, Zephyr was talking about it on his stream yesterday. As the former coach of TAMU Maroon, Nabber doesn't even play Apex. He's a Valorant player, so he'll have to really make his name known in the Apex community if he wants his team to get any better than just 5th or 4th out of this game.
Well, the thing about Valorant is that it's all about holding angles, and right now he's got a pretty good one. But it's going to be a matter of what other angles do people have on you, and there's a lot of teams on high ground angles, a lot of teams setting up their castle walls like St. Clair Saints right now, trying to hold strong, break the Rampart shield. A nice headshot there from Yoroi. It's not going to be enough to find a knock and not going to be enough to convert anything, but it will put a dent in the armor, so to speak. Nades ringing out as St. Clair Saints looking to try and make their move, and Nabber will be felled. Unfortunately, Valorant player is going to be sent back to AIM Labs, at least for now. St. Clair Saints, though, already down Yoroi. Lucky trying to make the best of a bad situation. They should be able to get the res courtesy of Rusty. San Jose State trying to close on in as Western Outlaws holding their ground with the P2020s from Goblin on top. Just trying to get the damage in. They need to hit the shield cells. They only have small meds right now. That's being passed back and forth. Is it going to be enough? Seeing Bangalore ultimates ringing out from on high, and there's no Watsons, by the way. She is banned, so no gens to soak up that damage. Everyone just has no choice but to tank it and tank the damage they do. The Sheila ringing out from Goblin on top. What a melting. Everyone just fish in a barrel for Goblin on top, ringing out with the P2020s and the Sheilas, and suddenly it's going to be San Jose State on the chopping block as Western Outlaws somehow, some way, weather the storm and come back with the Sheila minigun damage like I've never seen before and end up taking the dub on E-District.
I will say, Rampart a niche pick, but if there's any map you're going to pick her on, it's surely E-District. Not only does she make so many of these storefronts very viable, they're also just, the buildings are built in a way where a couple of Rampart walls can do a lot for you by way of providing cover, but that Sheila, just as effective on every map in the pool, and right there, it does its work. Every single thing that it needed to get done. As 228 spray, thanks to the shield bat getting popped, but that was only going to make it a matter of time until Western Outlaws locked that game out. Western Outlaws, being the 11th place team coming into this game, kind of fits the theme of that game that we were talking about. It's a big boost to teams who really needed that. We're seeing a lot of squads get some jumps up the scoreboard in terms of, boosting their points just a bit, and no one towards the top is really going to get that much closer to match point off of that last game.
But the race for match point is going to be a much tighter one as we do have our standings ready to go. Let's take a quick look and see how tight things have gotten. No one was able to overtake Minnesota State Mavericks, but like we said, they went out really early and didn't bring in a KP, so they're still sitting just 1 point shy of match point as we're going to be moving over to Storm Point, and some of these other teams starting to catch up, but not really making as much headway. That said, the top 10 is all kind of tight. Like, we're still all in the 30 to 40 range with Iowa State and Cumberland just 1 and 2 points shy.
Yes, so many teams it's just in the thick of it. I mean, we're talking about second place being at 36 points, 8th place being at 32. Any one of these teams coming out and having a statement game could get them to be to match point first. Maybe tied with Minnesota State Mavericks, but if you keep starting the game saying that it's a formality that they're going to reach match point, we might just keep cursing them, so I don't know. But either way.
But it'd be real funny if we did that.
It would be. That would actually be really funny.
Yeah.
I had a match point tournament. I think we should curse them more.
Because, if we keep cursing them and some of these other lower tier, I shouldn't say lower tier teams, but lower on the leaderboard teams start having, more and more of these big games, we can have a situation where we got 10 or 11 teams on match point. We're running things through. Maybe we do break that record. Maybe we do hit 14 maps.
Yeah, I was casting a match point tournament last night. I was casting Trash's Night Out V2. And we had a team get stuck on 48 points for 3 games in a row. And then once they hit match point, they won the tournament. So that was fun. It took 9 games for us to get there, but
you down
really
to do
exciting.
It again?
Oh, every day of the week. Are you kidding me? That sounds like an awesome time.
Surely on our next map, Minnesota State Mavericks will hit match point. I guarantee it with all of my caster energy. I guarantee they will get that one last KP that they need, and they will break match point, and it'll be very funny if they don't.
Well, all the same, we're going to need to take a quick break before we get into our next matches, but before we do, we want to thank our sponsors once again. Proton Privacy, the sponsors of the Proton Collegiate Apex Kickoff through Octane Collegiate. And they are the reason we're able to make this happen today. And they're also the people behind Proton Mail, the world's most private and secure email service. With Proton Mail, your emails are protected with end-to-end encryption, meaning that no one, not even Proton, can read your messages. It is trusted worldwide for users who want security without giving up ease of use. And if you want to try it out, you can type !Proton in chat. That's !Proton. And that command will give you a link that you can sign up for free. And that is going to help quite a lot if it sounds like Proton Mail is a product you'd be interested in. So thank you for helping us bring on this tournament. We want to thank Proton Mail. Also thanking Bearclaw Esports, another additional sponsor of the Apex Collegiate Kickoff. And with that, we're going to give you guys a bit of time to reset before we get into game number 5.
Proton. Privacy by default.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Octane Collegiate Protein. Sorry, I've got protein bars on. It's been so long since I've been in the gym. I was like Proton. I just have protein on the brain. I'm sorry. You know, with how strong some of these teams have been looking, there we go. I spun it. It works. Welcome back to the Proton Collegiate Kickoff. It is a match point Apex Legends tournament, and we are 1 point shy of match point. We don't quite have a team there yet, but surely we will have at least one of them after this next map, as we have Minnesota State Mavericks sitting at 49 points, just looking for 1 KP to break into that match point eligibility, and a few other heavy hitting teams not too far behind them, 36, 35, 35, 34. It is tight from 10 on up.
Yeah, honestly, from 19 on up, I really don't want to single out Georgia Tech Navy, but everyone else is averaging at least 2 points a game. You get 10 points up to this point. You've probably had at least one game here where you were at least a threat. Maybe you got a squad wipe. Maybe you were in a really good spot and got a top 5. Everybody's at least had a game where they've made their voices heard or have been consistently getting a couple points per game, which is saying a lot about the quality of this lot. And I think Georgia Tech Navy realistically are so far down because they've been on the wrong end in terms of where they're spawning. As on E District, they were spawning right next to Ottawa University, and Ottawa were very content to run them down every single game. So even then, they didn't really get much of a chance to get many points on that map. World's Edge coming out of Thermal, you didn't always get the best ring pulls for that. They've now got Down Beast, which unfortunately is right next to Tamu Maroon, and is also right next to a Ferrari contest between Southern Miss and Ottawa.
Yeah, that's 4 of our Big 6 teams up there in that northwestern corner.
And
like
then
you said,
there's Georgia Tech Navy.
Yeah, and then there's Georgia Tech
guys.
Navy, which is going to again, we don't want to single them out, but it's more than likely whichever team gets the better
Such an
of those
unlucky day.
4 up there, Georgia Tech is probably going to be food for them. Something else I kind of want to talk about though as we go over to Storm Point is our legend bans. Storm Point, a map that has traditionally favored some of these edge style teams. Ash has been banned after our last map on E District, so we tend to see a lot of Ash on Storm Point. Using the ability to get out with some of those teleporters is paramount, especially for a lot of these rotations or some of these edge skirmishes. Not to be opposition are going to start to look real weird as we have a look at Anglo Mirage Pathfinder. Yeah, why not?
That is the best segue they could have given you out of that point. Of just we're gonna have some weird comps, and then it's immediately to Bangalore, Pathfinder, and Mirage. All legends that have their niches, but already needing to see that kind of a full composition coming out. It's very telling that a lot of these edge fighting teams aren't necessarily getting their favorite legends anymore. So that's what they end up having to resort for.
Was able to get the favorite legend, get the Rampart over on the Storm Point. And again, like I was saying a little bit in the break, I'm not always expecting a Rampart to be on shield bats and pull out the Sheila, go full Rambo mode and win. I got choked up. I didn't actually know what words to say. I had nothing cooked for that moment because I was just not expecting it. But Goblet on top made it happen. And after a performance like that, of course you stick with the Rampart. You got the hot hand.
Yeah, you also keep a controller legend. There are only 2 of those left, and one of them is Catalyst. Becoming more and more niche as the days go on. We've only seen 2 Catalysts so far up into Game 5, and CSU Fullerton we will barely see in Game number 5 because they are already on the wrong end of a fight against St. Clair's, a team who had a very good start with a win in Game 1, but have since quieted down just a bit with only 8 points since that, or not quite 8 points, but not that many. Never do math on broadcast. They've only had 12 points since that Game 1 win decently chugging their way along, but it's very clear they want that match point ASAP, and they are not content with these 3-4 point games on the way to getting there.
Yeah, you don't got to be able to do math. You just got to be able to count to 50. That's really all you have to do if you're any of these teams. And St. Clair Saints do still have a ways to go. Kennesaw State over on the other side, taking a couple pot shots at them, is at 36 right now, not too far away. And like we said, you know, they had that early game first map of World's Edge that went so well for them, got them catapulted up towards the top, and they've been consistently in that top conversation ever since. Even despite going out early a couple of times, they could still be one of the teams that break into match point off the back of this. They just need to have one good performance here on Storm Point. And so far, you know, taking out a team like St. Clair Saints would be a hell of a way to do it. Another team we want to keep a close eye on is Texas A&M Maroon. It's been a little bit rough for them as of late. They're pretty far down the leaderboards. They are capable of making big plays, but so far we just haven't seen them be able to make big plays and make it consistently to an end game situation and have the KP to back it up.
Yeah, easily the most confusing team of the day. Ottawa University and Cumberland, Bellevue, Minnesota State Mavericks, and Southern Miss are all the teams that were doing either got first or second in their lobbies yesterday, and then Tamu Maroon. Notice the similar thing across the first 5 teams that I mentioned is that they've all been doing pretty well today. They're all at least in the top 10, and they've had some good fights or they've had a couple good games along the way. Tamu stand out as the one team that got top 2 in either of their lobbies yesterday, actually breaking 100 points, getting first place above Southern Miss. And they're not having quite as good a game so far today at only 18th place on the day. At Southern Miss, though,
Speaking of the devil,
not having the best day. And there they got to take a fight against SCC up top on the staircase. Viz doing some damage with the RE45, but he kind of wants to reset this just a bit.
Well, I guess, I don't know if that was intentional, but takes the Wraith TP
Nope,
out.
really
Yeah,
not.
it definitely wasn't intentional, going straight back on in and might be met with a grim fate. And with that Rampart wall there, can't actually get over, has to go over the other side. Luckily, those are friendly Catalyst spikes, so not going to be a threat, though. But Viz, you can see, oh, okay, we got lucky there on the hunt.
Full reset.
Forced to use that creeping barrage just to try and keep anyone from coming on the outside. Able to find a good armor crack there. I believe that was just onto the wall there. Viz being hunted by St. Clair Saints, forced to evacuate the building. And even though this isn't exactly a prio spot, it's still one that St. Clair Saints want to hold on to if they want to keep this one going. But the third party is now here. Divvy Bubble forced out, coming out early on. And Rusty G able to keep this one going with that Newcastle res. The only one alive. Southern Miss, by the way, going to be felled. It is Texas A&MU Maroon that are going to be felled. It seems these two are fated to do this dance forever.
Tiger Shrimp still standing. Zwifty does need to deck back out, though, because it looks like SCC and Tamu both are regretting taking the fight, and it's Georgia Tech Navy! They didn't want to single him out. They were on 1 point coming in, and now they're going to come through for some KP in a pretty good spot, but now they're getting fourth partied by Ottawa University, who've already gotten ripped off. They start, but the PK goes nuclear, and Mav knocks down all 3. It's all inevitable. Georgia Tech Navy just destined to be bullied all day. The 5th party, I think, into that fight. Somehow, they're the ones that get full wipes. That's what I'm talking about. They could be a phenomenal team. They're just having one of those days, man. It's just so unlucky for the poor guys today.
That is disgusting stuff from Mav, though, and for whatever reason, everybody really wants that one particular nut. No, like, we're fighting so hard for this spot, and I don't even think it's going to be in the final ring, and someone else who might not be there is going to be Koryu. And again, Iowa State Farmers, a team that likes to take his skirmishes, may have just ran into the wrong dogs today as Roll Tide and Seek came ready. Iowa State are no strangers to being down a man and having to try and go for a recovery, but to have that be a consistent pattern, you can actually see that one arrow up in the top right corner of your screen. It's not a great place to be, especially when you're so far away from the ring and it's Storm Point. It's a big map. You've got a lot of ground to cover, and unless you're able to get your hands on a trident, it's going to be a rough ride, my friend.
When you talk about teams who are looking to take fights, when you talk about ISU Farmers, but I'll tell you what, nothing screams I'm looking to take fights quite like picking Ballistic. So Roll Tide, very well equipped to take that engagement. Minnesota State Mavericks, a team we know wants to try and take fights, as Tamu Maroon will go down in 15th place. Zwifty eventually felled at the hands of Schmalls. So Minnesota State will find that. It is a heel off inside of wall on a ring pole that goes into Mills by 2 rats who have been left abandoned as their teammates have both died. It is a very dangerous game. And it seems like no one actually wants to move into the ring just yet.
You see what I see, the top right corner of your screen. What's that little number there by the skull? That's a 1 for Minnesota State Mavericks. They are on match point now after this game. They will be eligible to win it. Unfortunately, my curse didn't take, so I'm gonna have to get in touch with those witches again and see what happened, because there was a miscommunication somewhere. Cumberland University, a team, though, known for very strong communication, and right now you can see the pings coming out from Maple. They know exactly where Abysmal is, and you can see them swarming 3 strong all around to confirm that kill. Get the full fit on there. They don't even care that it's a full team, or that it's not a full team wipe. They just see blood and they go in.
And now it's just Guillermo, who spells his name about as confusingly as you could, I think, with the W at the end. Still, though, Guillermo looking for a way to just try and make it back in the ring. Right's way already knocked, and one of their teammates, Abysmal, finished off. Not a lot of teams playing for ring today, and even the ones that are, like Ottawa, end up in spots where they just so happen to fight 5 people and take all of the kills. So it's really just kind of, Tamu Maroon taking God Rock. We have Bellevue taking inside of Mills. And then Ottawa taking a good spot south of Mills, where I think I could see expecting this nut to still be in. That's what they're called. They're called nuts. It's not me making that up. It's kind of just the community accepted term for the little circle buildings. But I could see you wanting to, I could see thinking that nut's going to be in for quite a long time. But it isn't going to be, as this one just a little bit too north. It ends up pulling more towards the mill. So Bellevue in a really good spot here.
Much like that nut, Gamerhawks Navy might also not be in the final ring, as they're barely able to make it into this one. Reses and syringes, and a rough road ahead for all of them. You can even see, through the walls, it's a little bit of ways off, but a lot of health bars, a lot of people that they're going to be running into once they come through this bunker. If they're even able to make it out alive, it's definitely a rough little bit of leapfrog happening here with the Reses and the Ringes. I don't know that they're going to be able to make it in, and a lot of other teams, I shouldn't say a lot of other teams, but a couple other teams as well, also in equally dire straits. Roll Tide and Seek out there. Iowa State still has that one rat up by wall, like you said, trying to make it all the way down towards Mill, where teams like Ottawa University are currently lurking and also trying to find a way in. Flunking away at Bellevue, who currently have access to God Rock. Minnesota State Mavericks, the team that we said needed just 1 KP to get on the match point. They have it. With Schmalz healing up and no teammates, that might be all that they're able to get, especially if we can't get the reses off there.
It's crazy how as soon as we get that Ash ban, that's when everybody's just personalities come out. I just saw a Lifeline gliding through the air. I'm watching a Mirage Pathfinder comp. We saw Valkyrie. As a massive Valkyrie fan, Valk Game 5 is insane when evac towers exist. Like, it's things like that where it's like everyone's getting really comfortable trying to just pick some comfort picks, because at this point maybe you can't afford.
Remember that period of Apex when they released evac towers and just like Valkyrie went extinct? Like, she went from must pick to
still
just
extinct.
She was
still gone.
She was on like milk cartons, and now we only get to see her every once in a blue moon. At least we do have proof of life, at least for now.
For sure. Very good info operator if you can get her to purple. It makes those Valk ults, or even just taking an evac tower, insanely good for picking out which spots are available. But that can be a little bit niche. But either way, Gamerhawks Navy will go down in 13th, leaving us with the top 12 remaining squads. And because so many of these teams thought it would either be pulling to Bean or to the Nuts, or maybe to just below God Rock, and it actually pulls a bit more north than all that, I'd imagine Gamerhawks Navy will not be the only team we see dying on rotate here.
Yeah, as you can see, Roll Tide and Seek, there's Guillermo taking a lot of ring damage. Oh, this is looking pretty rough. All right, gonna be on 1 HP once we actually get into the ring here, buddy. Not a great place to be. And looking around, sees the Newcastle shield, says, all right, that building is taken, and nearly falls to the ring again. And yep, we'll end up falling there. OU Esports also having a rough time trying to make it into the ring. Way too many of these teams getting a little bit too greedy. Like I said, Stormpoint does favor edge teams, but the thing about being an edge team is eventually you do have to make it back into the zone.
Yeah. The other thing about this zone pull, though, is that it is so hard to rotate into Mill if you're coming from anywhere on that east side, like most teams are, as Gerald is going to be on the wrong end of a fight against Cumberland, leaving UHE Varsity in 11th place. Cumberland still with opportunities to possibly move up just a bit further, but Slash being knocked down means that that's not necessarily likely. They will outlive OU Esports, though, who die to Full Sail Armada kind of making a bit of a case for themselves here in these past few games. Already 5 KP in this game, and they've been getting a good amount of KP these last couple, at least making a case for themselves to be a contending team as we move forward, but they really need to get a high placement here, something they haven't been able to do so far today, and unfortunately it continues to pull over towards Mill, so it'll be very hard for Full Sail Armada, because like I was saying, it's really hard to rotate to this part of the map from the east side, given all that open area. I've had many a headache trying to call a rotate from like Cedo to Mill, and it never works.
Yeah,
maybe I'm just bad though. I don't.
Mill's just such a rough spot to be in, especially when you have a team like Bellevue holding this God Rock here. Cumberland though goes in. They want to try and take it for themselves. And you talk about Full Sail Armada, by the way, they end up falling.
Yep.
Keys and Maple here. Is you able to get the res off, get Slasher back up to full HP. Kennesaw State also is going to fall in the kill feed, so a lot of top tier teams are falling early on here. And even though we still have Minnesota State on match point, they cannot win it at this juncture, but they're still in the fight nonetheless.
We can scout that area.
Still so many top teams left up as well, though, as somehow Minnesota State Mavericks were able to get that reset. On top of that, Iowa State Farmers going down has bumped Cumberland into the top 4. So Ottawa, San Jose, Cumberland, and even Western Outlaws and Bellevue, given where Bellevue are kind of in the God spot, all with a chance to hit match point, and they'll all be much better off if Minnesota State Mavericks go down right now. That's the only team that's already confirmed match point. That would be more placement points going to everybody else in the lobby. And as they die, everyone else locking up some extra points. We are probably going to see multiple teams hit match point off of this game beyond just Minnesota State, because everybody left is in the top 8 and someone has to get that 12-point boost from getting first place.
Yeah, I saw Schmalz over there trying to plink away. I mean, it's like, homie, you're already at match point. You ain't got to be doing all that. But was hoping to try and I guess just grief, you know, like a San Jose State or an Ottawa State or a Cumberland. Some of these teams that are getting into the mid to high 40s that have the potentiality, like you said, to break into match point. And as we're in this top 5, all three of those teams are still in the mix. Bellevue is also still in the mix and should be holding a relatively strong position. No longer up on the God Rock, but very likely has made a good rotation here, and you can see them inside of Mill right now. This is actually a great place to be. I mean, it's not there with the rampart walls, with the Gibby bubbles. Once things start to pull over a little bit more closer to them, I like where this is going to be. Cumberland has the high ground though as well, which in a situation like this where a lot of teams are going to be approaching from afar, it's going to get real bloody for Cumberland real fast. They want to try and clear this low ground, though, because they know that some of these other teams are going to be trying to come on in. You can hear the Sheilas bring it out. Zach W. Key is going to hold S for once in his life this time around. Goblin is going to be felled there, and of course, when the Sheilas ring it out, it had to be Goblin on top. Unfortunately, not going to be on top this time around as Western Outlaws trying to fight, trying to hold their ground. Maple will be felled with a PK shot from Payne, but Payne is exactly what is being felt right now. A little bit more tickle damage coming on in, and the Outlaws have been dispatched. This land now belongs.
Did I not hear you finish, or did you just forget?
I think my mic cut out.
Whoops.
I think my mic cut out there.
You said now belongs, and I was waiting for you to finish, and I don't know. I guess it cut out. But either way, top 4 for the remaining teams. San Jose State getting eager to try and take a fight onto Bellevue inside the house. Now, Bellevue picked out Mills very early, sacrificed a lot of potential KP to do that. But you know who's never one to let KP go by the wayside is Ottawa. They shut down Maple, they shut down Slasher, they leave Cumberland alone as it's just Zach W. Keys 3 points away from hitting match point. But thanks to those KP and the placement points they've already found, Ottawa are the second team to hit that 50-point threshold. The big question now is who's going to take that win, and can anybody else find just enough points to also join Minnesota State Mavericks and Ottawa University on match point?
Great Kraber shot from Schmub. Unfortunately, it was just onto a Mirage, so not going to find a... Yeah, just a Mirage clone. You've been bamboozled, my friend. Good use of the Kraber ammo, but hey, if the next one actually hits the real thing, it's going to be felt. Zach W. Keys, the one lonely rat like he called out for Cumberland. Again, just trying to grief some of these other teams that have the opportunity to break into match point, but unfortunately, Ottawa has already done that. They're sitting at 50. So anything from here on out is just icing on the cake. They could deny San Jose from being able to join them. They could deny Cumberland as well if they can confirm this kill. onto Zach W. Key. So all Zach can really do is just try and play for his life right now. Ottawa have a real strong power position, and so too do Bellevue. I think my money is on one of these two teams to win it. But there we go. That one was not a Mirage clone. That was the real deal right there, and RJ felt the full force of that one. San Jose State are going to be going in off of that Kraber shot. They're looking for Cloak through the Bangalore smoke. It's so hard to confirm through this. They have access to the Sheila right now, but are going to think better of it, going to hold on to that utility for a little bit longer as the ring is going to start to close and things are going to get tightly packed here on Mill. Going to have Viking letting that Stinger roll out. Get a little bit of that bolt damage there, but it's forced to back off. Bottery with the Spitfire is able to trade that one out. It's not looking too good for San Jose State. They've tried to fight for this position, and they're doing all they can to try and hold it. But as the damage rings on out, they're going to drop on down. Schmub nearly falls with some 30-30 damage, but they have managed to find safe haven. And so too has Zach, by the way. Still sitting, still living, still trying to stay alive. As we move on now over to Bellevue, who have the PK shots. They have the utilities. Muffin's a little bit low on the armor. Still blue there. Ottawa University holding the high ground. This seems to be the god spot, at least for now, but they can't hold it forever, as it's going to be a central ring pull here in the last, this final ring. As it closes, San Jose down to just 2 men. They see Zach on the other side. They see the Sparrow util coming through. They want to try and knock this one out. They see Zach, and the fight's coming through. And Zach is actually going to be able to do it. Takes down San Jose State. That's going to get Cumberland onto match point. Bellevue with the shots there. Jukesy hits the PK onto Mav, and another big shot ringing out. Bellevue have an opportunity here. If they can get the win, it might just be enough. They're in the top 3. Another PK shot coming out onto RJ. There's the knock. They can get this one on the Cloaked as well. It's Vatari and it's Jukesy as Ottawa falls, and it's just going to be all Bellevue in the kill feed. And they will take this one. Match point just got real tasty, as I think we might now have 3 or 4 teams that have crossed the threshold.
Yeah, surely. The 12-point boost was exactly what Bellevue needed to get there. We saw Zach get Cumberland to that point. Ottawa made it just barely before they went down. And then Minnesota State Mavericks as well, also able to clinch at least 4 teams. I would imagine that's all that we had off the back of that game. But even still, that's a lot, especially given how long it took for us to get even just one. It felt like we could have seen it 2 or 3 or 1 or 2 games earlier than we ended up actually seeing it. So outstandingly well played by everybody who was able to clinch match point there. But I think a big story is that it's so many of those teams that we talked about being such big threats. All of the kind of big 3 new teams on the collegiate scene of Ottawa, Bellevue, and who's the other
Cumberland.
one? Cumberland. There you go. Ottawa, Bellevue, and Cumberland. All 3 hit match point. Exactly.
Yeah, it was kind of the perfect game for a lot of these teams. You know, it's exactly what all of them needed, even though you see some of these situations where it's like less than ideal for Cumberland because you're down to just Zach trying to play as a rat, but he's able to confirm that kill or those kills onto San Jose State. That's enough to just get them through the threshold. That plus the placement points, mwah, chef's kiss. You will take that 100%. And for Bellevue to win, to get that, because they were so far down, they still had at least 10 points that they needed to make up, even with the KP that they had allocated. But that build up for getting the full dub there is going to allow them to cross the threshold as well. Every single team did exactly what they needed to do and nothing more. But now, as we go on to our next map, they have to win it.
And that's the big difference maker. That's what separates the boys from the men. The small, not competitive teams, and the teams who can get a lot of KP from the best teams in the world, who can not only hit match point, but also switch up the playstyle when they need to get a win. As we can take a look at the scoreboard, we already know 4 of the match point teams. Nobody else able to hit it, though, as San Jose State got close, but no cigar. St. Clair Saints and Western Outlaws also sneaking within 10 points of the match point threshold, but it's Minnesota State, Cumberland, Ottawa, and by a hair, Bellevue off the back of the win, sneak in. And the most convincing team in that game to me is Bellevue, because you look at what happened for them in game number 4 on E-District. That was a really frustrating game to have to play. You recognize that if we're going to continue to play hard edge like this, we're going to keep running into the Cumberlands, the Ottawas, the Southern Mississippis, and or I think it might be Southern Missouri, actually. Either way, the Southern Misses, we're going to keep running into them, and they're going to keep griefing our games because we can beat most of these teams in fights, but we can't necessarily beat these guys reliably. They recognize that. They say, okay, let's just play for a really good spot in zone. It's okay if we don't get all that much KP. We just need a win. And making that adjustment gets Bellevue to match point. And as a team that was able to do it, while getting a win, cognizantly playing for that win that entire time. That is incredibly convincing for me to see out of a team like Bellevue. But every one of these teams have had really convincing games up to this point. So it could be anybody's tournament, even outside the top 4.
Yeah, and speaking of outside of the top 4, San Jose State, I want to call that out again because we both, we talked a little bit about it, but Zach W. Keys being able to get that last little bit of KP to confirm Cumberland University's placement here in match point. It was on to San Jose State. The placement points alone might have been enough for San Jose State to be the ones crossing over that threshold. So I think San Jose is going to be quite pissed going into this next one, knowing they were oh so close, and that singular rat came through and snuck right on in and took what was rightfully theirs. Just outside of that top 4 lurks a very angry San Jose, and a little bit of clarification as well for the Southern Misses. It is Southern Mississippi. I also
Mississippi, yes.
When you said Southern Misses, I was like, oh, is there a Southern Mister, or is Southern Misses single?
I'm gonna tell you keep talking like that.
I will keep talking like that. I will happily keep.
Right.
I live to rage bait, and I didn't want to cut you off because you were cooking, but I heard Southern Misses, and I was like, I'm gonna bring this back up in about 3 minutes when he's done.
Good.
So
you know what? I respect it.
Yeah, I won't commit to it, but I'll hold on to it until it's convenient to me.
That's honestly probably better. That's probably a little bit better, especially in casting. You never want to overcommit to a bit. Anyways, top 4 teams. We have match point already locked in, and we have game number 6 on Storm Point coming up soon. It's really going to come down to who we think has the most reliable way to win, at least over and over again, which is why I, like you said, talked for so long, and you almost had to cut me off because I was kind of yapping, but still. But there's merit in mentioning that, because Bellevue being able to say, all right, guys, we're going to settle in and play for a good spot in zone today, and then winning the game where they finally do that after completely changing up. Vatari, who's only played Bang and Pathfinder, was on Gibby last game, which just goes to show how that mindset completely changed in terms of what they're trying to do. And then they're able to win. That says a lot to me about what they're able to do as a team. Minnesota State Mavericks won their game by fragging out. And also, coincidentally, they kind of won a game where it felt like a lot of very good teams cannibalized each other on the edge. None of the other teams on match point had particularly good games in that game that Minnesota State Mavericks won. On top of that, we're noticing that it's not necessarily the easiest to replicate way to get wins, because there are enough teams like the match point teams we have, and also like ISU Farmers, like Southern Mississippi, and like a couple
you got the right
other
one
teams.
this time. Yeah,
yep, I got it. But a couple teams like that are able to kill each other on the edge. So as a match point team now, I don't think you can get away with just running around, killing everybody, and then getting Godspot and winning there as well. I feel like we're going to need to see some of these match point teams really settle in on some Newcastle Gibraltar maybe, and really lock in on a good spot in zone. And now we're going to start to see who has the ability to make some good ring calls and play some passive Apex, as compared to what we've been seeing before, where, surprise, surprise, the people who are in T2 and some of whom have been in T1 before are able to win fights against some people who are, more casually playing a collegiate Apex tournament with their friends.
Well, one of the things that you did highlight, I want to circle back real quick to Vatari. You mentioned a couple of legends that he was playing, only the Bangalore and the Pathfinder so far. Guess what? Bangalore is now banned. And on Stormpoint, to have both Ash and Bangalore banned is really going to put a dent in, I think, a lot of people's calculus. Like, again, this is a map that you want to try and play that edge style, and you really can't do that without 2 of those key legends. Remember, Alter was banned early on as well, so you don't even have that to try and swap out for the Ash. And you also mentioned we're down to just a couple controller legends. I kind of feel like we still might see a couple of Ramparts. Well, we may see a couple of teams try and reach for the Catalyst. I think we might also see a little bit more Wraith start to come out now, that we need to have some sort of utility to be able to make these quick rotations. And without the Bangalore, without the Ash, what else do we really have? The Pathfinder, I think,
Yeah.
we could see a fair bit of that as well, but it's going to start to be dire straits here from here on out.
And would you look at where this ring pulls, there is one POI that is fully centered in this ring.
And one team in that POI, our
And
number
that's-
one team, Minnesota State Mavericks.
On match point with an Evo Harvester in their POI as well. So they should be good to hit the Blues.
Remember when
The
I said, can
problem
you
is-
really overcome luck, though? Because it feels like they've got the luck.
The problem is, I don't think they have a ring console because they are already abandoning their POI, where obviously they would know not to do that if they had that ring console information. I don't think that I see the ring console on the school or on the map overlay there, and even still, even if it is there, they might also not have a ring console character. As throughout the night, they haven't necessarily been ones to always run someone who can get ring console, though Gravity seems to have taken up that mantle, so he might be on someone to hit that console. But either way, I don't know if they have the info, because they're abandoning Stormcatcher very early. That's an important narrative to keep an eye on for later on, as we see a couple of the lower teams on the scoreboard trying to find some early KP in an off-spawn fight.
I imagine they'll be kicking themselves when they had to do a 180 and just turn right back around there.
Oh my gosh.
UAG Varsity, though, doing a little bit of kicking with that 30-30. That thing kicks like a bloody mule if you're able to get a headshot off of it. And I like what I'm seeing so far from some of these lower teams. Even though they want to try and take some of these fights early, start to build up this KP, they're able to compose themselves and get the damage down. The 30-30s and with the G7 scouts, you can see all the damage coming out from UAG Varsity, breaking the shields and forcing the resources out early on. Should be able to try and take this one if they can confirm another crack, maybe even a knock, and try and go in. Gamerhawks Navy, another one of these teams we talked about before that like to try and play very strategically, like to play very bunkered down. Not able to do just that. And Iowa State, a team that does the exact opposite of that, already being punished for trying to get a little aggressive.
Yeah, it feels like ISU farmers are kind of being shown the error in their ways in terms of how their fighting is going to go. As Full Sail Armada lose the contest at Echo HQ, it's Gerald and the guys on UHC Varsity. The first time we've really gotten a meaningful opportunity to say that name so far. ISU farmers were left on one, as one was in Zeus Station and a couple others died in very different spots, but in Zeus Station there's a completely different contest. It's Gamerhawks Navy, the ones on the better end of it for now. Bentonhem, good shots onto Abysmal to take down another member of Roll Tide. Now it looks like only one is remaining. I think he's going to take the zip line over to Zeus Station. They want to stay away from the Sparrow, but Reverse Dizzy's going to try and chase down Guillermo, and even if he can't get the kill, you'd have to imagine that eventually someone's going to find this lone rat. As Gamerhawks Navy, a team who really could have used the points early on in this game, are going to find what they want.
And as we got a brief glimpse of the ring there, we could actually see a couple of squatters coming in for that building that was once promised to Minnesota State Mavericks. But like you said, they abandoned ship. They didn't have the intel, and they left. So they're going to come back, and they're going to find someone staying in their home and wonder what happened and have to try and fight back for it. It's going to be a little bit of a rough way to try and retake if they want to try and close this one out. It's our match point team. You know, we got to keep a close eye on them, as well as Cumberland, as well as Ottawa, and as well as Bellevue. If you see any of those names in the kill feed chat, I want you to scream real loud.
You talk about a lot about how with Minnesota Mavericks, it's kind of come up with the story of can you overcome luck just getting the right scenarios in the right spots, and you overcome bad luck is the thing there, because you could have known it was pulling right to your POI, but you didn't get the lucky pull of the ring console. So they'll have to try and overcome that as we move on. San Jose State, the closest team to hitting match point that has not yet done so. 46 points up to this point. Most of that off of placement, so not necessarily farming KP like many others. They're doing it the good old-fashioned way, as Roll Tide and Seek fully taken down. Guillermo finally finished off by Croissant, and San Jose State will take up a spot in the staircase, having to hope on a little bit of a counter, a little bit of a pullback, because it does look like if it continues to follow the path that it's on, the ring will go further east of Stormcatcher, maybe towards where Dark Zero won one of their tournaments many years ago, so long ago that I forget which tournament it exactly was, or maybe even further over to East Trail / Cliffside. Either way, still, decent spot for San Jose State early, and good spot for Ottawa. Even if it doesn't pull on top of them, they'll get plenty of opportunities for Poe.
Yeah, right on top of Stormcatcher where you want to be, where we knew the ring was going to pull. Western Outlaws, a team sitting at 41 points right now. We mentioned earlier how San Jose State was sitting at 46. We saw some shots ringing out, and it was on to Western Outlaws. If you're San Jose State, you want to try and take out some of these top-tier teams, you know, the teams that are on match point, but you also want to try and take out some of the teams directly below you. Little do they know they're in a bit of a rough spot right now, and Texas A&M Maroon, as we transition on over to the other side of the ring, no stranger to being in tough spot, but with some Sheila action, is looking to put the Hurton back out onto this other team. Castle Wall going to ring out. Pear is going to mirror it with a better wall. The damage now going to be coming out with Eva 8. It's the full fin there onto Lucky, and this looks real good for Texas A&M Maroon. They're not going to be able to get the full team wipe, but they have managed to get themselves a primo position, at least for now. But you can't talk about primo positions without circling right on back to Ottawa, who are basically eating off of Minnesota State Mavericks' plate right now.
I'll tell you what, though, you could talk about plenty of premier positions, and Ottawa might not be in one of them anymore, because like I had suspected, it's pulling very far east over to the East Trail / Cliffside area, whatever you choose to call it. Nice shots for Fuzzy on UCF Knights Academy. The backslash threw me off for a second. But this is also not just a team that's hitting some nice shots, but a team that's in such a good spot for this next ring pull. They are going to likely continue to get some pulls into their backyard. There is still a chance at a counter pull here, but at the very least, they're inside ring 3. A lot of these teams who thought it'd be closer to Stormcatcher, not going to be so happy about this pull. Minnesota State Mavericks, though they're getting a lot of KP, I would have to imagine aren't going to be happy with this either. Because remember, this is the team that landed in Stormcatcher. They have neg rotated all the way to the top of lift over outside wall, which seems questionable. But hey, if it ends up working at the very end, it ended up working. We'll have to wait and see if they'll be able to find the win here, despite how far away they've gotten from the POI they landed at, the POI where the zone is going to end.
Well, speaking of work, both Southern Miss and Cumberland have got their work cut out for them, as both are down to rats. And again, Cumberland is one of our match point teams. This is not something that you want to see from a match point team. And Southern Mississippi is a team that is has their sights set on becoming a match point team, only at 35 points, but still has a lot of legwork to make it up. I don't think they're going to be able to make up that ground as just a rat unless they're able to get a full reset coming out here. But they're going to be late to the party. And again, with some of these legends banned out that are, you know, good for the rotations, trying to make the rotations into the ring. If you're not already there, you're going to have a real rough time. UHE Varsity getting a little bit of cleanup KP there onto Regamores. And this is another team that has to try and make one of those rotations. They're very far away from the ring pull. They have the Wraith, which is going to be their only real mobility tool. And they're going to have some Gibby bubbles to try and bunker down, but you want to try and hold that for once you get into the fight.
Wow.
All right, just casually go for a 30-30 headshot and, okay, refuse to elaborate. What a gamer move.
Refuses to elaborate, leaves. That is the definition of that. It's a couple rats running into each other here. Viz should be able to get this res off, but Maple, just below Viz, also looking to craft exactly where I presume Viz just did, as Iowa State farmers have taken down Trevmichi. If you did not remember, Trevmichi is on Minnesota State Mavericks. This is what I'm talking about. It's already not looking good for MSU Mavericks. We need to be able to play for wins. We can't just be relying on these kills.
You know who it does look good for, though? Is Bellevue, because they are still at full strength. The only match point team that we can confirm is still at full strength and is a good position, a strong high ground here. They have a good legend composition as well with the Newcastle, the Gibby, and the Rampart. They can set up the walls and basically make their own damn cover wherever they please. And they're not in any sort of situation where they're taking unnecessary fights. When you're on match point, the KP doesn't matter anymore. You can't win the game just yet, but you can damn sure lose it before the final ring. And if you're Bellevue, you want to stay at full strength. Cumberland is going to get the res off, but they're not in a great spot. St. Clair Saints, they ain't looking good for Yoroi here, as we are going to be able to get the med kits off and live, at least for now. But it's not going to be very much of a life. We are living, we are not thriving.
Yeah, Respawn was found, and Port was left behind for some of his teammates. A lot of teams incredibly fractioned early on within this last match, but noticeably very high quality. Not a ton of teams dead early. I think that's partly as a result of so many of these match point teams recognizing that they need to really lock in and get their win here. I want to shout out Bellevue for that rotate. One of the best things about Stormpoint being on that north side is you can rotate around to clear that height, and then for the rest of the game, pretty much, you'll be fighting downwards. You'll be at every advantage. And now, they seem to have gotten some good opening damage, and now they're trying to take a fight on the team inside of East Trail. I believe this is UCF Academy. Into their bottom floor go Bellevue, but not yet committing to that fight, allowing that reset. And UCF are on purples, too. So they're actually at a bit of an advantage in this fight with a very similar composition. It's very well set up to hold this building.
And with the rampart walls, they want to do more than hold it. They want to deny any entry. They want to evict Bellevue from the premises completely. They want to be the landlords of this building, but there are other people coming on in this same neighborhood, Iowa State Farmers. You want to talk about teams that love to pick fights? Well, I mean, they will square up to anybody. This is a team that will walk right up into the biggest yard, or the biggest dog in the yard, punch them straight in the face and become kings of the prison. And they see the biggest dogs in the yard right now on the other side in Bellevue University. As we circle on back over to Cumberland. Sure, yeah, they were able to get the res, but Maple is once again going to have to be on the run. Zach W. Keys doesn't have a battery. He's going to be falling. And it's not looking good for basically anybody besides Bellevue. And I want to go back and talk a little bit more about Bellevue and their positioning. You talked about that rotation. They're doing it with a slow composition, so it was a primo ring call, and they're able to get the God spot, and now they just have to fight to hold it. Cumberland University will fall. That's our first match point team to fall in 4th place currently. They're not going to be walking home with the trophy just yet unless we get a denial of 3 other teams. And there goes another one. Minnesota State Mavericks now gone. It's down to Ottawa or Bellevue to win it all.
And Ottawa looks to be in a bit of a shaky spot. They are in a good position in terms of ring and relative to where they're going to have to rotate eventually, but they're going to get pushed by a lot of teams. This Tamu Maroon getting pushed out. Monkey gets put down. Big shots for the PK as Swifty able to get some good kills. And there's Kennesaw State Black eventually coming through for the finish anyways. But Elixirs is so low on HP, tucked in the corner somehow. These fires aren't doing damage to him. But I think there's another team inside the secret tunnel that looks like it was Ottawa taking the opportunity to go for that third party. And Elixirs barely able to get down off that zip line. But I think Ottawa just found their way into a primo position as CSU Fullerton fighting over this nut that is still in for quite a significant amount of time afterwards. They got knocked down, but they're picked back up. OU, the ones trying to hold them out. Great shots for Presso. Could even find a second of the Crimson Monkey, and it is so comfortable for Oklahoma University as they shut down all of CSU Fullerton, but that's not the end of the onslaught just yet.
You said it was comfortable for them. Well, it's too soon to get comfy there as the PK shot's going to ring out from Leroy, and St. Clair Saints will successfully third that one. And there is a lot of third partying going on all over the map. 10 squads left, and there's so few of them that are still at a full 3. UAG Varsity is at a full 3-man, but it might be temporary as the Stinger Bolt is coming out. A little bit of that pulsating damage. Ty is able to stabilize. We got the Gibby Bubble as well. San Jose State at 49 points currently. As we briefly have a look over at them, they are a team that could break into match point, and only 2 match point teams are still alive. If they fall, it looks good for San Jose. But we know where Bellevue currently is. Or were they? Because it seems as though they've snuck out the back door, and UCF Knights are currently holding this this top floor of this building, still thinking that there's a burglar down below.
Yeah, Bellevue had a pretty good rotate. They could have been playing where ISU were and played their edge out, but they got a little bit, or fought from the edge in, excuse me. And instead, they got a little overzealous. They tried to fight off UCF Knights. UCF Knights did a great job resetting, and now Bellevue's kind of stuck ratting in a corner that isn't included in ring number 5. So, dangerous spot for Bellevue at the moment. I was watching Zephyr's stream yesterday. He was watching a lot of Voddery, doing a lot of ratting. So he's very comfortable being the silent rat as Schmub gets a knockdown on a daze, and it looks like Penn State, one of the lower level teams on the, at least in terms of placement on the scoreboard, the lowest team on the scoreboard still standing, might likely not be standing for that much longer as Southern Miss are looking for some good KP here. They need every bit of it to try and get closer to match point. They do get the extra knockdown on a daze, as well as the Q pop by Viz. You could possibly even escape to a better position, and as Penn State gets eliminated, that's more points on the board for Southern Miss, though they still stand a good 8 points away from match point. I don't know if they'll be able to lock in enough to hit it after this game, and that's even if Ottawa or Bellevue don't just win.
San Jose State gets eliminated, but have a look at that number right there, 50 points. 50. They break on over into match point. Viz still has a ways to go, and some placement points might help, but I don't know if it's going to be happening. And yeah, with a little bit of stray shots, coming out from that grenade. It's a frag that ends up finishing it out, and 43 is where Southern Miss are going to be sitting, at least for now. So they're going to need another game. They're going to have to be praying that we're not seeing Ottawa or Bellevue hoisting the trophy right now. Bellevue in a good spot right now with the castle walls, and you talk about them just holding a corner, not necessarily in the ring, but still on the outskirts of it. This is exactly what they want to do. This team has played so well to get this position. They have fought so well to hold it. That's all they really have to do. Like we said, if they go out now, they lose, but they don't need the KP. They just need to get the dub. So another situation where you let every other team pick fights, bleed each other out, and then pick the bones. That could be enough for them to hoist the trophy. And again, teams that like to pick fights, like Iowa State, are still miraculously in the mix. They've been down to a rat on, I believe, 2 occasions at this point, but have been able to res themselves back up. This is a team that can make a lot of noise, do a lot of damage, and set Bellevue up for a win condition.
Yeah, especially since they don't have the team comp to really sit by the wayside. They've even abandoned the crypto they've been running since game 1. They're on Horizon Revenant Sparrow. This is a team that needs to fight you to function. They cannot just sit still and play out of good spots. Even though I think they're in a great spot right now, I don't know if they have what it takes to hold it without proactively fighting anybody, and that always comes with the risk of getting 30s. There are still all of 6 squads remaining, though I'd imagine a couple are going to die on this rotate, as it's an uphill battle for some of our teams.
Ottawa University, another match point team, currently sitting in first place with 61 points, setting up the castle wall. Good shot coming out from Lock Sanity. Western Outlaws still have a ways to go if they want to be in that upper echelon. They see the Wraith teleport come out. They see the portal, the Kraber shot. The second one doesn't quite hit. And now we're in a bit of a rough spot where we don't have the high ground advantage. The ring is going to start to pull us in, and we have to try and make a move into St. Clair Saints. Able to get the res, I believe, onto Lucky, or should be able to, with the use of that Newcastle. And this isn't a great spot for them to be either. St. Clair Saints are very close to match point as well. They want to be walking away with 3 more points, but it's looking rough. Western Outlaws take another knock, should be able to get that res off. Not looking great for either of those. Circling on back over to Ottawa, though, as they see Iowa State. They want to try and keep them at bay. Like you said, Iowa State needs to take fights to function, and Ottawa University wants to deny them the opportunity to ever do just that.
None of the match point teams really matter, though. If Ottawa's able to take the win here, Iowa State getting the opportunity to take a little bit of a fight. They get a knockdown to get entry. They get everything they wanted out of the wipe. But now here comes the issue. We don't have a support character. If someone recognizes that we're reviving out here, they could take our great spot away from us. Not done yet, though, as eventually Iowa State will be allowed to get that reset. Western Outlaws move up to take the spot that was just killed off by Iowa State that St. Clair's were playing at earlier, but now Bellevue in a really rocky position, and they're all still on blues because they've been ratting all game. It is not looking good for Bellevue. I think if it ends here, it's going to end for Ottawa, and they're in a really good spot to do just that, as 2 teams that aren't on match point are doing the job for them, and Iowa State Farmers taken down.
Bellevue, with that Bangalore ultimate raining down, they have to go inside, and this is not a great place to be because remember, UCF Knights are up there, upstairs. They've been waiting. Ottawa University still have the high ground. They have prio over all of this as we're down to just 4 squads. Western Outlaws on the outskirts, by the way, have crossed into that match point. If they're able to get the dub here, they can take us to another one. UCF Knights still have the potential to take us the rest of the way, but it looks so good for Ottawa. They see Goblin's walls there. They want to try and get a little bit more KP, clear out all of the threats that they possibly can, make sure that their path to victory is as clear as day. You can see the Gibby ultimate coming down. It's going to make it a little bit more rough for those teams outside. UCF Knights going to be sitting real pretty here with a roof over their heads, shelter for the time being. But as the ring closes, they're going to be forced to evacuate the premises, and this is where it's going to start to look good for Ottawa, who should be dropping right down on top of them. But they're taking a fight right now with the Outlaws, and they've lost RJ. They might be able to get the res here with a Newcastle. It's going to be good enough, at least for now, but this is going to slow their rotation here. UCF Knights forced to try and fight out into the ring. The Sheila is out. Western Outlaws at full strength now. The Arc Stars coming out. It looks so good right now, and Bellevue continuing to hold their ground over here in this corner, forcing every other team to their knees. It's down to UCF, Bellevue, and Ottawa. Bellevue have the high ground. Bellevue still at full strength. The PK shot's coming out. And they might have done it. UCF Knights have fallen. It's either going to be Bellevue or it's going to be Ottawa. And Bellevue says it is going to be us. The PK shots come out, and they will do it. They go back-to-back on Storm Point, and they walk away on match point as your champions.
What did I say coming into this game? Bellevue are the only team leading into game number 6 that has demonstrated an ability to be mature enough to say, guys, we're not getting overly aggressive this game. We are not getting caught up in too many fights. They think through the best rotate that we were praising them for since we saw it happen. I was talking about how they can work that north side, fight everybody else down, and get into a spot where you can tell this ring is going to go from ring 2. People who know their ball when it comes to zone pulls are going to know that's where that's ending up. That is what Bellevue is. They may not have had the most damage or the most kills on the day. They might have. I don't know for sure. But what I know they did have was the most mature set of callers and the most experienced roster in terms of the ability to say, all right, guys, this is what we need to do to get the win in this game. Not just put up the most points, but to win in an individual match. Not only having the experience of Muffins having been playing this game since like 2018, 2019, a professional when it came out, but also having former Pro League in-game leader Vattery on board as well. That's going to help you make really good calls in important situations like that. And they played everything perfectly at the very, very end. Macro, micro, all of it great. And wins in those last 2 games for Bellevue. Finally making it work after a few games early on where they looked really good, but kind of got griefed by some of those other very aggressive edge teams. They kind of had just, I guess, the maturity in a sense to say, all right, guys, we're not going to play to get a lot of kills. We're just going to settle in and get 2 consecutive wins out of really good spots in ring with compositions that are made to hold those spots, with the Gibby Newcastle Rampart getting it done in that last game 6.
Yeah, like, let's be honest, nothing was promised to this team. Even with all of the talent that they bring to the forefront, it felt like, you know, they still did have to fight and scratch and claw for a lot of this, but they had the maturity, like you said a couple times, to be able to weather the storm throughout all of the chaos all around. Let's have a quick look at our final standings, and we can see as the dust settles, Bellevue University in Game 6 will take it, finishing off with 71 points overall, only 38 kills. Ottawa with 45, like you said. You don't need to have the most damage. You don't need to have the most kills. You just need to be the team on match point that gets the dub. And they do just that. They hold on to their position for so long. They make the good ring call. They're able to get themselves into not even God spot. It wasn't even the best spot, but Ottawa end up taking the God spot. And then, like you said, getting griefed by a team like Western Outlaws in a match point situation. And you see that 2 teams that you've identified as likely candidates to be that match point team are still in the mix. You get desperate. You have to make a move. You have to make a play. And they do just that. They're able to break themselves at 52 and crack into that match point. Had this one gone the way of UCF Knights, there would be a second lease on life for San Jose State and for Western Outlaws. But because they made that move and Ottawa were not at full strength, Bellevue just had to sit and wait and bide their time. And when the right moment hit, they took it.
And we mentioned, I specifically said you don't need to have the most kills, you don't need to have the most damage. But in this case, it helps to have the most damage. And you know who did? Was Vattery. 11,000 damage in 6 games. The next highest of anyone across the whole set was 9,400, 9.4k out of Viz. He had at least 1,500 more damage than the second highest player of anyone in the entire lobby. Listen, I'll say it again. You guys do not know that Oversleepers roster like I did. If my goat is smurfing in collegiate, I'm happy to see Vattery come out on top. It's been a long road for a guy like that, and this is just the start of what's probably going to be a really exciting Apex collegiate career for everyone on Bellevue. Jukesy joining up too, being very, very reliable, and Muffins holding down the fort. And like you said, it's kind of beyond the numbers, like we've been talking about. It's beyond the numbers, the success for Bellevue in terms of their ability to just find wins when they need to.
But I think this tournament as a whole, you know, we want to highlight Bellevue, of course, but we're talking about a lot of teams throughout the day. I think this tournament serves as a good precursor to the upcoming Octane Collegiate season. There's a lot of talent, and especially a lot of very closely matched talent in this top 10. You know, we've got Bellevue winning it in Game 6, but have a look down at Southern Miss, 42. Anyone from 10 up could have turned this into a match point situation for themselves. And I think you kind of take that if you're any of these teams and you can say, okay, sure, Bellevue are coming out the champions today. They deserve the crown. They can walk away with it. Very well deserved. Looks good on them. Tailor-made for them. But there are a lot of other heads that might fit that crown as well. And if we were to potentially go to a game 7, a game 8, or even if we were to run this whole damn tournament back, it could have been a San Jose State. It could have been an Ottawa. It damn sure could have been a Cumberland. It could have been any of them. It could have been Minnesota State if their first Storm Point had gone a little bit better. Sorry, if their last E District had gone a little bit better.
And with that, the Proton Collegiate Kickoff has come to a close. One final time, we want to thank the sponsor for the tournament, Proton. Again, the reason we were able to get this tournament going, this tournament was brought to you by them, and Proton Privacy are the people behind Proton Mail, the world's most private and secure email service. With Proton Mail, your emails are protected with end-to-end encryption, meaning that no one, not even Proton, can read your messages. It's trusted worldwide for users who want security without giving up ease of use. And if that sounds good to you, you can try it out by typing !Proton in the chat. That's !Proton. That command will send you to a link where you can sign up for free. And that is all that you need to do. Special thanks again to Proton Privacy, and special thank you to Bear Claw Esports for making this tournament happen, as well as special thanks to everybody behind the scenes for helping us get through. And it was a wonderful time. I don't know about you, CB, but I had a great time here.
Yeah, I did as well. And I shouts out again to both Bear Claw and to Proton. So secure, not even Proton can read it. No one can. You can read your emails, though, but you won't need email to know when we're going to be coming back around, because surely you're going to follow Octane Collegiate on Twitter, and you're going to keep up to date and know when you're going to get more Collegiate Apex Legends action, because it was tight, because it was awesome, because it was fun, because you don't really know who the next champion is going to be the next time we run this back, and I can't wait to do it either with you or sitting in from the audience with the chat. I'm sure you guys all had a wonderful time. Either way, I'm sure I'm going to be there as well as you in some way, shape, or form. But nevertheless, I think that's going to be it for you and I. Thank you guys all for coming out and supporting the show. Thank you guys at Octane Collegiate. And yeah, see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Proton. Privacy by default.